that time of month again. It sneaks up on you. It's Joni Mitchell time on Phonogenics 101. Last time we talked about For the Roses. What was it for? It should have been FOUR the Roses. For the Roses. We talked about for 4 hours. And at the end of that discussion, I just remember I was like, I'm sorry to keep my eyes open. But it was such a great discussion. It really like haunted me for like 2 days afterwards. Such an emotional album. Thanks to all my Patreon subscribers. Thanks to everyone that subscribed to the YouTube channel. The thing I love about our discussions is that the music will live on forever. But the way the music affected people who lived during the time when it came out, we're leaving a record for that too. Because these songs meant a lot to us. So tonight we're talking about Joni Mitchell's 6th album, Court and Spark. I think we can all agree it's looked at as a universal masterpiece. Her second, I guess, critical masterpiece. Now, to us fans, there's probably like about 12 albums that I think are masterpieces. But I think the 2 big ones to the general public are Blue and Court and Spark. I went back and listened to the album from beginning to end. It's been the first time in a while. And the things that came into my mind is there's definitely a sophistication and maturity. And I felt like there's more money. Like Joni's got more money this time around. She's going to some parties that in some social circles that she was not in probably during Ladies of the Canyon. So let's go around the circle and have the panel introduce themselves and maybe say what this album means to you. Let's start off with Chris.
Hello, I'm Chris, and I am in Croton-on-Hudson, New York, which is about 40 miles north of New York City. And this album is an album that I kind of fell into with friends from high school. It was probably my second or third Joni album. I subsequently went back into the catalog afterwards. So I guess I think it was Clouds, then Ladies of the Canyon, then this. And then I went back for Blue and For the Roses. And subsequently Song to a Seagull, but that was quite some time after that. Let's see, what can I tell you about this? The first time, the piano started and I thought, okay, there is that beautiful piano, those warm chords, those phenomenal things. And then suddenly there was an entire band.
Right.
And the band didn't go away. It didn't like just disappear, come in for a little cameo and then disappear off. Oh no, it stayed. And it not only did it stay, it was integrated and just a flower everywhere. It was creating novel, brand new vocabulary for her musically, and the way she played her layered vocals along with it. I mean, it blew my mind. It just blew my mind. And the radio stations in New York, I don't know how it was for you guys too, but the radio stations really did embrace quite a few of the tracks, especially Raised on Robbery and Help Me were on the air constantly here in New York. And it was really, really, really encouraging, and I couldn't get enough of it, and I knew a lot of friends at school who were also really into it. Most of them happened to be female. I have to note that portion of it. That still, the people whose ear Joni grabbed first tended to be females. But there were lots of musician types who really dug what they were hearing too. I mean, for Steely Dan was, doing a lot of, those type of, jazz improvisational things. So the stuff was happening. The zeitgeist was not hers alone, I think, at the time, but she really made it her own. She really did. That's all I got to say to start.
Yeah, this wasn't Blonde in the Bleachers where the band sticks around for like 30 seconds.
Not at all. Not at all.
All right, Bob.
So this was the very first Joni Mitchell record that I bought when it came out. Like Chris said, Help Me was everywhere on the radio, along with Maria Muldaur's Midnight at the Oasis. It seemed like those two songs played side by side all the time. I loved them both. We heard "Help Me" in our high school cafeteria all the time. Just a gorgeous sound. And I had not been a Joni Mitchell fan, had not bought a record of hers prior. That song was so awesome. I had to buy the album. My Raleigh redneck friends bought the album. We listened to it. We dropped the needle on "Down to You" and talk about what a song is this. You know, what this, nothing like this has ever happened before. You know, and what a beautiful song this is. So it was really an amazing time for this record. That is, if you graph her success, Court and Spark is the absolute peak of her success, and it's a masterpiece in every nuance of the word.
Because a lot of times in an artist's catalog, maybe their most popular album maybe necessarily wasn't their best. It's sometimes people look at it as like a sellout album. Shit, that's not the case this time at all.
I will say with Chris, you know, she wasn't intentionally trying to tap into the zeitgeist, but she was slightly ahead of the curve when jazz and rock fused, and she got that. I mean, she had the Crusaders, you know, Larry Carlton, Wilton Felder, and the third guy whose name currently escapes me, but she had all three of these jazz Crusaders on the record. Of course, Tom Scott was back. Max Bennett played bass. A big cast of players. A major transition from some of the band stuff on For the Roses. Now she's doing pretty much all band. A couple of these songs are more stark, but not many. You know, they're very big voice, and lyrically, she's totally on point.
Oh my God!
Musically, way beyond point. I mean, nothing like this has ever come before or after.
Right.
Yeah.
Woo! I can already tell this is going to be an intense discussion. I'm getting the feels a little bit. We haven't even started the damn album cover. Okay, Jack.
So I first got into Joni with Blue, trying to impress a girl that I worked with. And, you know, I like the more pop stuff. But, you know, I completely like a major league Joni Mitchell fan. You know, I got For the Roses as well. And like, you know, like some of them, you know, like Electricity, for example. But when this thing came out, it was like, okay, now this is, I totally get it. I loved it from the first play. I would say the only thing I really dislike about it is I shuffle my music on my iPhone a lot in the car. And when this comes on and it plays part of it like sweet and then doesn't keep playing the sweet because it's they're considered different songs. And I just like about run off the road. You know, it's like, oh, how can you stop? But other than that, man, it's flawless.
Awesome. All right, David.
Yeah. So I too started with Blue, and so this was the third album or new album of hers that I was familiar with, and it's a fabulous album. It's great. And when I wish I could have hung out for all of For the Roses conversation last month, but this is such after For the Roses, which was such a retreat and an introspection and a wondering what to do, and particularly what to do about the industry. Her stepping back and claiming Hollywood, claiming LA, and it's just stunning and so sophisticated and sure. Really kind of taking the pop music on its own terms. Anyway, I think maybe fabulous. Thanks.
Awesome, Sue.
Hi, yeah. I bought this album for my mother for Christmas because I really wanted it bad. I was working at Rory's in the mall. I only had a little bit of money for Christmas, and everybody knew. As soon as my mother opened this album, she was like, my sister was like, I can't believe you. You didn't buy this for mommy. So, but the thing was, is that I had heard Blue on the radio. I didn't have the album Blue yet, but I wanted to buy her new album because I had heard Blue on the radio. So now I was going to listen to this album, and the first song just killed me. Court and Spark. I mean, I was just starting to, react to men, in a different way, and having crushes and stuff, and that song just melted me. It was just so beautiful, and I really loved "Help Me," the hit. I mean, I thought that was great, but it was the same thing that drew me to Blue. It was just the emotion, the incredible emotion that she gets out of the music. Same Situation, and even People's Party. People's Party, I have a really incredible connection with because, you know, since I'm the founder of the guitar and piano database at JoniMitchell.com, the reason why that happened was because of People's Party. I really wanted to learn how to play that song because I had never known that, not until like the early 90s, that the reason why Joni Mitchell's guitar playing was so different was because of the alternate tunings. And People's Party was the first song that I played in alternate tunings. And I got it from Howard Wright's transcription on the internet. And I really feel like when I tuned the guitar to open D and I started playing it, I felt like my fairy godmother hit me with her magic wand. I just couldn't believe that I was playing this song that I loved so much, and like Jack said, everybody, the Down to You, was it Rob you mentioned Down to You?
Yep.
I mean, I was at that point in my life, I was listening to music like Jethro Tull, Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, all this really complicated orchestral music, that was freaky too, and and I would go to all the arena concerts and all that kind of stuff, and then I started listening to Joni Mitchell, and it was all synthesized into this incredible fusion of the lyrics, the music, and just all, just the experience. Like, I get that thing too, where you have to listen to the whole thing from beginning to end.
Absolutely.
It's like it's a whole suite, it's a whole concerto, whatever. And and the other thing I want to mention is that I can't remember if Divine Miss M came out around the same time or not, but the whole big band thing that Joni was into too, with Raised on Robbery and Twisted, and and she even goes into it even more in like I don't know, I just feel like the part harmony she does sounds like the Andrews Sisters.
Oh yeah.
That Bette Midler was doing that too, with a lot of songs like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. I loved that stuff. I thought it was so great, and we were even doing like faux jitterbug in our dances at the middle school. It was really.
Dude, I think Divine Miss M was 72, and
so it was earlier. Yeah,
it was a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so that made a lot of sense because when I got Court and Spark, that kind of music really spoke to me too. The big band. It was like big band type of music, and jazz. So yeah, I'm pretty. Court and Spark. I always say, people say, what's your favorite album? Court and Spark comes to mind first.
Wow.
So and then I have to always say, except for Hejira and Turbulent Indigo too. But so that's all I got.
Oh, and those are both such great. I almost want to like block off 48 hours so we can talk about every album because I hate to wait for all the months we got to wait for Turbulent Indigo. Such a good album. Okay, Bill.
Yeah, so this is the first time you've seen me. I listened to several of the prior sessions, which I just loved, and I'm very impressed, but kind of worried about the depth of your musicality. So music does more for me emotionally than anything I can think of, but I'm sort of bipolar musically. I've sung in church choirs, madrigal groups. Way back there. But I love contemporary music too, but I'm not as familiar. Joni and I are exact contemporaries. So I was 30 years old when this came out, and her music has always spoken to me so well because we're kind of at the same stage of life. But her world was very different from my world. I was a chemical engineer in a big chemical company. I had mostly contemporary friends, conventional friends, but anyway, the music, I think she's a genius, both from her melodies and from her love stories. They are incredibly, meaningful. And I have I'm interested in future discussions because her music moved so as she aged and developed. Whereas James Taylor still sounds like the James Taylor I heard 50 years ago. She is completely different. And one of my great regrets is that she stopped writing music. Because I'm looking for people write music for me as a 76-year-old guy.
Oh yeah.
And there are I don't know. So I can't speak when you talk about, well, you compare them with Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Yeah, I knew about them, but her music was just so different and grabbing to me in so many ways. And that's why I'm here tonight. I love her stuff. To me, Twisted was the first time I had heard a jazz in Joni. I know later on she got really into jazz, but in her earlier album, she was just this pretty young girl, as some people have said. And I thought she was incredible. So that's all I want to say for now.
Well, Bill, we're glad to have you with us tonight. All right,
Thank you,
moving
Chris.
on. We have Mark, who's been with me since the Joe Biden days.
Well, this was the album that caught me as well. And a lot of the same reasons that Sue mentioned. I like that kind of nostalgic swing music type of feel. Bette Midler actually recorded Twisted on her second record, which was her eponymous Bette Midler album. And I'd already known that. And but I bought this record and started listening to it and was just so blown away by it and just felt like it was speaking directly to me in a lot of ways, the place I was in my life and so forth. And I remember it must have been the summer after I bought this record when I went home from college and I'd go out with my friends and I'd come in late. And I lived in a very small house. My parents' bedroom was right next door to mine. And I would put the stereo speakers right next to my bed on either side. And more often than not, I would put on Court and Spark really, really low so that my parents couldn't hear it in the next room.
Oh.
But I think I just absorbed that record into my brain while I was listening to it like this. It's like it's almost etched into the grooves of my brain. I've said that many times before, but it fits together like clockwork. It's about as near to perfect, I think, as you can get. And like Bob said, the zeitgeist and where Joni was kind of met with this record, I think. There was a lot of different music going on at the time, and listeners were open to all kinds of different things. And FM radio was playing not just top 45 or top 40 hits. They were playing any cut off of any album. And this one just, I think, hit a nerve with people, and she took off, and it's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, every time I listen to this record, and I've listened to it like half a dozen times in the past couple of days, but my first thought is this album is in my DNA.
Yeah.
And I think, that's probably true of all of us.
Yep.
There was also something I think that she carried into it too, was that yes, it was bigger, it was more expanded, it was textured in a way we hadn't heard, but I think still everybody knew that she was in control of it.
Absolutely.
And that kind of sort of empowerment wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't in a I'm a woman, hear me roar kind of thing, which certainly could have been a very, very valid message if she wanted to carry that one at the time, but she didn't have to. It was all about her being a cat.
I have a couple more people to introduce. Alicia, who's from my Stevie Nicks family, is jumping on to talk about Court and Spark with us.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you doing?
Oh, it's good to see you over here.
I know you're gonna see me twice this month. You're not gonna know what to do.
I love it.
Well, where did I find out about Joni? I'm obviously much younger than you guys. I didn't find out about Joni until about 15 years ago. Well, I became a fan at least 15 years ago. It was in my mid-teens. I had to do a writing assignment in school, and afterwards I handed it to my dad, who's an amateur poet. He likes to write. And I said, okay, here's what I've done. Can you proofread it and make sure it's okay? And when he did, at the end, he said, this reminds me of Joni's lyrics. And I'm not a writer by any means, but he's like, who's Joni? Like, who is this? So very shortly thereafter, he checked out one of her records from the library, and he played it for me in his car one time. And I remember it's Clouds because I remember the album cover, and I did not like it. But at that time, I was listening to a lot of music that was kind of Phil Spector, sort of very big, Celine Dion, Gloria Estefan, just this big voices and full music, choirs, the whole 9 yards. So listening to Joni with just a guitar or something was just so different. And that initial was just like, yeah, no, I don't like this. But a couple years later, I was around 19. And at that time, because I was in college, I didn't have a radio. I wasn't able to keep up with the current music and trends and everything. But I still like music, and I still like trying new things. I remember going to the library, and they had one of her records out, and it was Hits. And I picked it up and said, okay, well, let's try this again. Maybe I like. And that was when it really clicked for me. I don't know if it's the age or if it was maturity that needed to come. But and then from there, I started picking up Blue and then Court and Spark. So that was about 15 years ago. But I've enjoyed Court and Spark since then. And I know we're going to go track by track, so I'm not going to. But this was such a different style for me. And Joni's, I'll be honest, I don't know all of Joni's work. But she reminds me of an artist that every album's different. So you can't quite sit there and say, oh, I like this record, and then pick up the next 5, because they're all different. They're all, it's Joni, but she's trying new genres. She's growing with the music. That's what made it, what makes her, I guess, difficult in a way. I mean, you have to grow as a listener with her. And that was something that I've had to do to pick up the other records. So I'll stop there, Jeremy. But
Well, it's awesome to have you here with us. It's definitely because we talk about Stevie Nicks, who kind of is Stevie Nicks throughout all her discography, but Joni definitely goes different places with each album, like you said. So it's definitely a really unique journey that's about to get wilder in the next few months. Honestly,
And we all had that same learning curve with every record. Every time we put that needle down until we had no more needles, we would not know what we were going to expect. And the first listen was like, what? And then, and the second listen, suddenly it was started to, get into us.
It took me about 15 listens for Taming the Tiger, but I got there eventually.
We'll talk.
All right, and then last but not least, we have Dave Blackburn here.
Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
Great to see you.
Thank you. So what I missed the beginning of the question. It was how did you hear
Just talk about this album, what it kind of.
Okay. This was actually the first one that I heard. I was, I think, 15. So it would have been about the year it came out. Well, exactly the year it came out. And my first girlfriend had a copy, and so I'd go over to her house and she'd put it on. So that was my kind of earliest association with it. And I just was instantly transported by the melodies, not the words so much at first because I was paying attention to other things, but the melodies were really gorgeous, and the sound was very. I was living in England, so I was really turned on by the kind of West Coast California sound, and that album really epitomizes that with all those LA Express players and the kind of production and everything. So I was very, very taken by that, and just how, like Mark said, how beautifully formed everything was. Everything was just so crafted nicely. And then, of course, over the years, those songs, like Bob said, it kind of gets into your DNA. I was really ready for Hissing when that came out because I was now a fan. But even that, when Hissing came out, I was a bit shocked by some of the departures, Jungle Line and so on. So and Sweet Bird, which I now love, but I could hardly hear it. It was so quiet, When you had surface noise, an intro like that just vanishes. So, no pun intended. But anyway, so Court and Spark for me, it opens up beautifully and it unfolds perfectly. And when we got to perform it with Max Bennett playing bass, it was just heaven.
Wow.
I had when I was 16, I had a little solo gig at my local pub. It was unamplified, just traipsing across the plowed fields with my guitar. And I would try and sing. I sang my own originals, but I also did some covers that I liked. And I remember trying to do Trouble Child. But I didn't really know the right chords because I had no one to ask. So I did my best to fake the chords, but I do remember performing Trouble Child in a pub in 1975.
Awesome.
Aren't we glad we have our Sue Tierney and our Dave Blackburn?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right, we have one more person to introduce. Reuben, we're talking about what this album means to you.
Unmute, Reuben.
There we go. This it's funny. I didn't listen to Joni's albums in order before. I think probably Wild Things Forward I listened to in order, and then I listened to the others out of sequence backwards. And at first listen, this wasn't one that jumped out at me when I was a teenager, but it's crept up to the top of my list since then, and I think it's one of my most favorites. I think if you cracked my head open, you would hear the piano intro down to you just playing over and over and over again. It's just that may be my favorite Joni song. And this one, I don't know, it seems like it's not necessarily one of her showier albums, but to me it's one of her very best. I love this record.
Cool. All right, well, as we get into discussion, just a couple of housekeeping things. We have a lot of people on the panel, so try to use the reaction raised hand thing down there, or just raise your hand, and I'll try to call on people in order. And also, if you're not talking, try to mute your computer just so we can kind of keep the surface noise at a minimum. All right. Well, it was 1990, and there was a record store in my hometown called Record Giant, and they needed help cleaning the store. So I said, I was in 15 then. I'll help you clean the store. And they said I could pick out something. I didn't have a CD player yet, but there's this new thing out, this newer called the CD, and I saw Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark CD, and it was actually this very copy. They gave me this for helping them clean the store. And I didn't even get a CD player for another year, but I had all of Joni on vinyl, and I was ready for this new technology. So Joni Mitchell, Court and Spark, it's so funny because it actually says, like, features her hits raised on Robbery in the little writing on the cover because it was the early days of the CD. And one more little story before we jump in. I remember Joni talking in interviews how excited she was to debut this album for her friends. There was a party, and maybe y'all can jump in. And didn't Bob Dylan also play Planet Waves? And everyone was so excited about that album. And then they kind of snubbed Court and Spark because,
Yeah, no, that's true. And of course, he classically fell asleep when she played this record because David Geffen was at the party. So he fell asleep. And Court and Spark was number 2 for 6 consecutive weeks on the Billboard album charts. Each week, a different record kept her off the number 1 spot. 1 week was Planet Waves. 1 week was Olivia Newton-John. 1 week was Stevie Wonder. 1 week was John Denver. This album peaked at number 2 for 6 consecutive weeks.
I thought Blood on the Tracks was 74. Am I wrong about that?
You may be right, but Planet Waves was the one that bumped her off of it. And the album did go number 1 in Canada. So those Canadians are so much smarter than we are.
So is anybody really having a 3-hour discussion about Planet Waves in 2021? I don't think so. All right, Bob, I see your hand is up.
I just wanted to mention some generalities about this record, before we move on track by track. Grammys, it was nominated for Album of the Year. I guess Stevie Wonder's Fulfilling This won that year. I could be wrong with that, but Dave, he won it 3 years in a row in the same time period, right, and rightfully so. It was Help Me was Record of the Year, did not win. Down to You actually won Best Arrangement with a Vocal, won a Grammy for Joni. 3 singles off the album. Help Me, of course, was her only number 1 top 10 hit ever. It hit number 7. Free Man in Paris, Backed by People's Parties, was number 22. Raised on Robbery, back with Court and Spark, went to 65. The album's gone double platinum. It is, by anyone's definition, her most successful record.
Was Help Me the first single of the album? Was that the lead single?
Yes, that was the lead single, and the most obvious one. It was a gorgeous track.
All right.
Before we get too far away from Bob Dylan falling asleep during the playing of it, just remember, boring, the old man is snoring, and I'm taming the tiger. It comes back. It comes back. It comes back. She doesn't forget.
She doesn't. Joni Mitchell, she never lies and she never forgets. Okay, so we have David and then Reuben.
I just want to say, wasn't she actually living with Geffen at this time? Didn't she, when she moved back to LA, she lived with Geffen?
I think so.
Well, her living situation was changing because she had just bought the house in Bel Air in 74 and had left Laurel Canyon. So I think this probably was the transition period where she was probably living in Malibu while Bel Air was being cleaned up for her.
Where she still lives to this day, right? Same house. All right,
I think Chris, the Laurel Canyon house was being rented at the time, so she couldn't live there. And as you say, Bel Air was being built or being remodeled. Because it's an old house, so it wouldn't have been built, but it must have been remodeled. So she was staying at Geffen's for a while.
Was Cher in the picture then too?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, Cher was there. All right, Reuben?
I think Cher was there, actually. I think I read somewhere that they all lived together briefly. It must have been at that time, or maybe Cher was just in and out because she was dating Geffen. I actually had a question for Bob. Bob, how did Court and Spark compare to Blue in in sales? Was it hugely more, or I'm just curious?
Probably over time they've evened out, but it was Court and Spark certainly went gold earlier. It went gold in '74 when the record came out, whereas Blue took some time to grow. Ended up being double platinum in the late '80s. So it's her best selling record from what I've read.
So the original album cover had embossing on it with the title kind of popping out a little bit. I have the gold plated CD that has the embossing on the cover. What a strange album cover. Now let's talk about the album cover before we go into the music. Is that the mountains of LA? What's everyone's interpretation of the cover?
No idea.
No idea. David?
That's just fabulous.
A girlfriend told me what it was right at contemporaneously. She said, "Look at this cover." She goes, "You know what it is?" And I said, "No." She said, "It's a mountain hugging itself."
Yeah.
And I said, "It is."
Yeah.
I think it's an ocean wave hugging itself.
Hold it up again, Bill. Let's see it again.
I kind of had this theory at one time that the whole record was like an ocean wave, and then kind of peaked at Car on a Hill, and then kind of fell after that.
It's such a strange
breaking like the waves on Malibu.
Yeah.
Isn't it called something like The Sea Embraces Itself? I don't know.
I wish Jamie was here because he would know for sure.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah. The painting is probably at jonimitchell.com. I'm trying to find it.
This is one of the things that I love about Joni Mitchell is that here's her best-selling album with this obtuse cover, which is a great piece of art, but it's not like this great photograph or some marketable thing. She always does these weird left turns. It just boggles me. It really does. It's like sometimes she intentionally sets out to not follow the expected path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It says it's the mountain loves the sea.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I found it on jonimitchell.com. It says Joni's comments from the Star Art book, "The Mountain Loves the Sea," which became the album cover for Court and Spark, was done on my land in Vancouver. It was done in a moment of whimsy. It's a metaphor for the way the waves met up with the mountain, the way they embraced one another, originally apparently owned by Rosie O'Donnell.
You know what's weird is even the painting is the way it's cropped, just like a little square in the center of the, I guess, peach cover.
It's raised. It's raised a little bit.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Like, it's so strange and it's so perfect. All right, David and Reuben, are your hands up or are they still up from before?
Mine's just, no, forget mine.
Okay. All right, does anyone else have any thoughts on the album cover?
Well, this was the record that that Slash's father was the art director for, right?
Yeah, I believe he was involved at least in the songbook because he, I think, created the poster that I was just displaying.
I'm forgetting his name, but
Anthony Hudson.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was hanging out a bit with Anthony. He did the poster that became the other picture in the Star Art book for the summer '74 tour. And he did a bunch of work with her for especially on the songbook. But the cover itself, this was a fairly expensive cover to do with the embossing, and a confident one too, because from a distance when you look at the cover, you can't tell what it is because you can't even see her name. You have to see it in certain light to see that it's embossed and raised until they brought out the 4-channel. The 4-channel, they said, "Oh no, we need to sell this with your name on it, please." and it lost all of the embossing.
I even find the title, like Court and Spark. What? Because so far we have Song to a Seagull, Clouds, Ladies of the Canyon, Blue, For the Roses. And now we have Court and Spark. Like,
Well,
if
if
go
you're
ahead.
courting someone, you're courting someone, and if things are going well, you're sparking with them,
Yeah.
right? It's court and
Yeah.
spark.
Well, I guess
I think it's love and madness.
And
There's
there's a
my
band named
interpretation.
Spark too.
Some I don't know, eelologists. I don't know what you call people who study eels, but this was on the Joni Mitchell discussion list. Somebody wrote something about the sex life of electrical eels was Court and Spark. It's an actual scientific journal.
I'm gonna make an album called Court and Implosion because that's more accurate for my life.
And we'll all buy that
Disaster. All right, well, we're doing good. We're getting into the first song before the first hour, so we're.
No, we aren't. We haven't gotten to the inside photo. The photo. I just want to say that is a real example of what I said at the beginning. If we're coming back to LA and saying, I am a star,
Yes.
I am here. Look at that earring. Come on.
Our time.
Look at that jawline.
That's what I meant when we were talking about For the Roses, and I had gotten a copy of the songbook, and it has some really glammy Norman Seeff photos in it, and I thought those kind of marketing photos of Joni came around the Court and Spark era. I was surprised that they had been published in the For the Roses book, because it seemed like Court and Spark was really her Hollywood turning point, where she started that part of her persona to me.
I feel like my role of the podcast is to bring the least intelligent commentary, so let me do that right now. I feel like this is the album where she definitely went into a different tax bracket. Like, the whole album just feels like a different tax bracket to me.
Yeah.
Like, sophisticated. Even when I picture her wearing in the studio, like For the Roses, she has like some weird hippie boots on. You know she wasn't wearing those in the studio, cutting the vocals for Help Me.
Well, Jeremy, it would have literally been a much higher budget record than anything before.
Right.
So yes, her earnings may have been higher, but also the label's cost was a lot higher. So something that's interesting to me is when I interviewed Max Bennett was he said that nobody but Tom Scott had ever heard of her in the band. She went into the Baked Potato on a Tuesday night to hear LA Express because Tom had invited her to come down and hear his new band, and the place was packed, and she loved the band. And afterwards she went up to the band and said, would you guys like to come down to A&M and play on my new record? And they just thought it was going to be some 3-chord thing, and I had no idea that it was going to be challenging. So they showed up at the studio. And like I say, Tom Scott knew her from For the Roses, but none of the others did. And she played them Help Me, on the guitar, and their jaws dropped and said, oh my God, this is going to be hard. Because she couldn't tell them what the chords were. They couldn't tell by looking at her hand, and she couldn't write it down. So they basically had to figure out that day how that song went, come up with cool parts and record it. So what you hear on Help Me was them meeting her for the first time on day one.
God, talk about love at first sight.
Well, talk about great arranging at first sight. They're going and expecting some folk record maybe, and they got, this perfect pop tune with meter changes and lots of chord changes, and they just nailed it.
And the arrangements are thick with the reeds and woodwinds in some place and with percussion in another place. Everybody gets a turn in it. It's really, it's very democratic too.
Well, I'm sure that was all added later, but just even the basic tracks, just to understand her changes and what she's trying to do, was a lot of rapid thinking that day. And then they all suddenly took her seriously because, and then it went so well that she said, "Well, would you want to play on the others?" And they said, "Yeah." So it was very informal how they got involved.
So Dave, it sounds like you and Chris are really musicians. I have 2 early songbooks by Joni. But they predate Court and Spark.
Yeah.
It was the first 3 albums or whatever. Have you ever heard of later? Because I'm teaching myself the piano and the guitar because of Joni Mitchell, and these are good songbooks. I can play all these things. They're not. Then her music, the piano music and the guitar music was not difficult, but it stopped. It seemed to stop later on. I haven't seen any other songbooks for the music of Joni Mitchell.
The songbooks, Bill, are hard to go by only because the early songbooks, especially while she owned all of the publishing and everything, she was not in charge and didn't care much about the transcriptions that were done.
Oh.
And they were very simple vocal arrangements done by, one of the big publishers, whoever was publishing the songbook for Warner at the time. But that changed a bit, starting with For the Roses. For the Roses was the first one that they suddenly got more serious about charting her actual guitar tunes.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty legitimate, the things that I've seen.
Yeah, but the ones earlier than that, and as far as me being a musician, I just play one on TV. I'm serious. It's very Dave.
Well, you talk a good game.
Dave, right? Dave's the real deal.
And so it was Phil, Dave, the transcription mavens.
So being a collector's nerd, there is a Joni Mitchell songbook for every album except for Dog Eat Dog. Am I correct in that?
Wait, I think I have a Dog Eat Dog. Let me look for that.
All right. I've never seen one in all my
So I can't give up.
No, don't give up.
Plus, there's the Joni Complete So Far.
Oh, the book, right.
I mean, that has all the studio albums in it.
Right.
And that came out in 2014. So,
Okay.
But doesn't that leave out the piano pieces, Sue?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't. It's almost like the type of transcriptions that only give you the for the piano songs anyway, just the first lead. They don't go into any of the longer piano songs.
No, I'm always very suspect of the word complete.
I know.
Right? It's not really complete. She said so far.
I actually had a client come to me a few years ago. He wanted to publish this complete chord book, guitar chord book. And it was going to be this like $75 coffee table tome that, nothing had ever come close. And so he had, just chapter after chapter after chapter of chord shapes. And he wanted to have some CDs accompanying it. So he came to my studio and had me play some of his sample chord progressions using some of his shapes. And as we were doing it, I said, well, no musician would ever use these ones here, and they don't even sound good. I said, why wouldn't you put this one? And he said, oh, I don't have that one. I said, well, there goes complete, So that was before it even came out, was we realized that it was a bit of a preposterous thing to claim.
So we can never have Phonogenics, the complete Joni Mitchell discussions?
That we can do with this crowd.
Oh, absolutely. All right, let's get into the album. It starts off with the piano, and the song just builds, then pulls back, then builds. Like, revisiting the song and really listening to it, every second counts. And the arrangement is so intricate and just so beautiful. And I feel like I can't even do it justice, but there's somebody here who can. Who would like to start?
Yeah, I mean, Court and Sparks, the piano tracks, this is a perfect transition from where she was on For the Roses with all those piano songs, solo piano songs. Because this album certainly is not a solo piano album. Lots and lots of players, as we've already said. But she starts off with this incredible chord progression and the whole song about this guy who shows up at a doorstep, and he wants to strike up a relationship, and she's just not sure. So it's an amazing intro, which she generally is always good at, with the exception of Tin Angel, introducing introducing her records with in a really nice way.
Poor Alicia, that's the first thing she heard by Joni was Tin Angel. No wonder it took a couple of years. Mark.
There's a kind of an odd story about this. A guy contacted Les Irvin. I don't know how long ago this was, but he claims that this song is about him.
Oh.
He says that at some point of his life, he had a bad acid trip that really caused horrible things to go wrong in his brain, but that he wandered around and was homeless and panhandled for a long time. But he claims that two guys came up to him one night and said, "We have somebody that wants to talk to you because she has a thing with her music that she wants to interview and talk to you about." And he said they led him to this cottage, and this beautiful blonde girl opened the door, and it was Joni Mitchell. And that she asked him all these questions, and some of the things he had been through in his life. He had been at Berkeley and was panhandling there, and at some point decided that he was going to, it was when the riots broke out in Berkeley. He decided he was going to bury all of his change in People's Park. So he did that, and at one point some guru or something, some priest, that he took him in or something, he decided he was going to give up playing blues guitar. He was going to sacrifice his blues. And also he was going on a search for the woman that would be his partner, would fulfill his life, looking for a woman to court and spark. And there's even a story somewhere about him going to some kind of be-in or love fest in Colorado and running down a hill, like instead of running up a river in the dark, he's running down a hill in the dark with all these people. And it's really bizarre, but this guy claims that the song is about him.
Kind of sounds retrofit to me. I mean, I'm not saying that Joni just doesn't write, her reality, which certainly she does, but I don't know, to sort of take it that literally. It sounds like.
I don't buy it, but it's an interesting side note, I think.
I have a bombshell for you all. It was actually written about me. Reuben, I see your hand is up.
I was just going to say, in the biography that came out a couple of years ago, Larry Klein was quoted as telling a story similar to that. And I don't remember the details, and I should have reread it before this because it popped into my head. But it was similar to what you just described, Mark. Some experience that Joni had with a homeless guy, and some of the quotes she had lifted directly from things he had told her, and then retooled it. But my reaction when I read it was I hated knowing the backstory to this because it was different than the one I had in my head, and I realized that you hear all of these great songs and knowing the backstory of them kind of spoils it sometimes when you hear it. So I was very careful whenever Larry Klein was quoted in the book after that, because I didn't want to read anything else. I didn't want to read any more spoilers in case I didn't like them. But anyway, it was similar, Mark, to what you said.
That's weird.
To me, this song is kind of, I don't know, it's almost like this magical or religious experience of love is being described as, what's the word I want? Like this transformative religious experience, and you're giving up everything that matters to you or matters to most people, like wealth or whatever, and it's transforming you. But in the end, she says she can't let go of LA. She can't let go of all of that, City of the Fallen Angels. So it's like this mystical experience for me. So that it kind of ruins it for me too, Reuben, to even think about something like that.
That it happened in somebody else's head and not in Joni's.
I think that was part of it for me. Yeah, was that it hadn't. Yeah. Yes. and also that it was just kind of this not terribly interesting story compared to what was going on in my head when I heard. I don't know. It was weird.
I agree.
But she
Voting
was
that
able
story
to
off the
transform it into such an incredible song, you know.
Yeah.
Well, the introduction alone, again, she is masterful. I mean, the way it starts the record, chosen brilliantly to start the record because you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's coming until what is it, the 18th bar or something? You know, I suddenly the band comes in and they don't leave, but until that point, you think this is another beautiful solo record from Joni Mitchell, and it's going to be, you know, her intimacy again, and it is, but it's expanded in a way that you had no idea was coming, and it's just tremendous. You know, it's interesting. She gives Rick Beato a going for because she tells him, "I did some pretty good intros in my life too."
Oh, right.
Yeah, so
Saw that.
So you know, we were talking about the intros on some of the songs in this record, and yeah, they're there for sure.
I do remember the first time I heard the song when the 16th notes coming on the hi-hat. I was like, "Oh shit!" And then the full beat comes in, but it doesn't stay for very long. You know, just for a couple measures. It's such an interesting piece of music.
It's Max that really, you know, takes us in and suddenly sucks us into her whole new world. You know, I mean, the bass just pulls us right in.
I love the way it ends.
With the chimes.
Chimes,
the
in the background.
Chimes, yeah.
You're actually tubular bells, in fact.
Is there a French horn playing there at the end? And it's to me, it's like the city spreads out.
Yeah,
at
the skyline at night.
Well, tubular bells also are reminiscent of church bells, which might, in her mind, evoke weddings.
A lot of The Exorcist.
The way and spark, which is where that ends. It ends in a wedding, doesn't it? Usually, if they've done it right.
Or divorce.
Well, just the way her mind works, it could easily be something she thought about.
And those chimes are Milt Holland, who's one of the premier percussionists who's ever been.
Well, he's the one that played Pandero on Big Yellow Taxi on 3 albums earlier.
Does Joni have chimes or tubular bells anywhere else in her entire discography?
I don't think so.
I apologize for that remark.
Ooh, they're a very underused sound. I don't know why. Are they expensive to transport? I have no idea.
Well, studios might, A&M Studios probably had them sitting there in the room. They would have a Hammond organ, they'd have pianos, and they might have tubular bells and timpani and things that would be really a drag to have to transport. Mm-hmm. So they would often have those available, and she might have said, "Hey, what do those sound like? Let's slap them on there."
It's glorious. Alicia, I saw your hand up.
Oh, well, everybody was talking about the bells, and every time as she's hitting the angels, that's when the bells start going off. Mm-hmm. And it always made me think of like heaven. It just really,
angels. Yeah,
it's such a ironic, the words with the melody.
And they sound so beautiful against the slide guitar too, against the pedal steel. It's gorgeous.
I feel like this is a perfect piece of music. Like it's heaven on earth. I
feel like you're right.
It's so good. I don't even have the words for how good I think it is. He saw me mistrusting him and still acting kind. Been there.
And hey, it's got a bridge.
Yeah.
One of the rare Joni songs with a proper bridge.
We keep saying that, but man, that list is growing.
So what do we have for bridges so far? Let's try to keep a list. The first one was like something on Lazy Canyon. Oh, well. We're going to forget it now. Well, do we have any other thoughts on Court and Spark? Sue, then Alicia, then Dave.
I have to just speak from what the song meant to me, because I get that whole thing. Sometimes the backstories really mess me up too. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I was I had a huge crush on a guy, and I that line, his eyes were the color of the sand in the sea, and the more he talked to me, the more he reached me. I mean, all that stuff's, it was like I did think of like um, first love and or any kind of attraction as like this kind of like mind blowing experience, where you just connect, and it's like the thing that she said in Blue, like the touching souls type of thing, and all that imagery that not only came off her other albums, but this song just kind of informed the way that I thought about love. I mean, I have to, it's almost like I have to always think of Joni Mitchell, when I'm thinking about when I fell in love for the first time, because she explains it so amazingly, and it was so interesting too because it's not only all the feelings, but it's the disappointment too. It's like you go through the whole song and then, and but I had to go back to LA. I mean, I couldn't continue this. It wasn't something that was sustainable in a way, and it also taught me how like these this these feelings are so fleeting too. It was just at such a young age to like really get that, the whole way that she explained these feelings and how almost like they were like smoke, and then they're gone. And the music helps that too. I mean, the music is just so gorgeous, you float on it when you're in those feelings. So when I think of Court and Spark, I think of just, I don't really think of, first of all, it's a piano song. I don't know how to play piano, so I think of it as just like this huge feeling, this memory of hearing it for the first time, and just showing how much I really love this album, and that and this is just the beginning, just this one
Right.
song, the beginning of like this whole experience that changed my life. I mean, it changed my life. I just thought differently. I was only 15. I was like, by the time I got out of high school, I was so enmeshed in all these kind of creative things. Like I was a painter. I hung out with people who were musicians. I always wanted to be in that creative space. And it's a time in my life that I think back on a lot. And she was the soundtrack for it. So that song is really means a lot to me.
Aw. All right, so we have Alicia and then Dave and then David. Alicia.
I don't know how to follow up after that, but well, I was trying to think. I mean, this is one of the first records I really listened to from Joni, from beginning to end. And for me, I guess I was 20 or so, listening to this was the first few bars, as you have in that huge piano. It just was quite an interesting, beautiful opening. So my teenage years is the 2000s, and my 20s are the 2010s. So a lot of the people I was listening to, or my contemporaries, don't have an album like this. There's just, and me, I did band in school. I did the clarinet. By no means am I great at it, but it was so interesting to hear the mix of kind of a folk rock band mixed in with the classical, mixed in with the jazz. She does it very tastefully throughout this whole record. And but Court Spark has kind of the folk and the piano or the classical side for it. And it was just such a beautiful opening. She's different from Stevie. Stevie seems to always piece her little, she does her couple lines here and a couple lines there. Whereas it seems Joni does hers all at once. It's like one. So it was different in that regard. But Joni always paints pictures in my mind. And I think that's because she's a painter. So I see the visuals every time I see her lyrics. And then I have to sit there and dig and see what she's actually trying to say with these lyrics, with the paintings. But this song was such a, to me, it's kind of like that Disney, here we are, everything's perfect, and then you decide not to go for it. You know, Love Came to My Door just always reminds me of like the princess movies with everything. But it's just, I love how she, I don't know, I mean, it's just such a great opening. And I can't say anything.
This is perfect. All right, we have Dave, then David.
I was going to point out from a musical standpoint that this is a really good example of a song that flits between a major and a minor tonality. She starts the song with this bright, high E major triad, and then it starts descending down into the next octave, and then it turns in, as soon as her voice comes in, it's E minor. So she's gone from, you know, this kind of bright opening. Within a few bars, she's darkened it to minor, and then the da 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 da, that's back to major. So like the song, the Paul McCartney song Michelle, it dances between the two tonalities of major and minor, which is very effective. It's not original, but it's very effective. But I like you guys probably always love the starkness of that opening chord. You don't need to hear any more to know it's chord and spark, right? That's all you need to tell you that it's that album. So I think
the lower triad brings the bells too before the chimes even hit. Early da 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 da.
Yeah, but just the very beginning is just a really cool way to set up an atmosphere for the narrative.
And I forgot to mention, I love on this song and the whole album the electric piano.
Yeah,
it comes in. All right, David.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the theme of seeing something and then saying no, which goes through so many of her things, where this like for the first time I was thinking it was for free. You know, I saw this thing, it was really intriguing and everything, but I walked on. And so much of her magic and mystery to me is that kind of distance, you know, the distance, seeing her whole life from clouds at icy altitudes. That I just love that, and the pristine observation. You know, his eyes are the color of the sand of the sea. I don't know. It's just gorgeous. That's all.
I just suddenly thought of the lyrics from For the Roses, where she sings, I guess I seem ungrateful with my teeth sunk in the hand that brings me things I really can't give up just yet. But that's kind of, I guess that's kind of the flip side of it, isn't it?
Yeah, there's also this, I'm in LA now. It ends with, I'm in LA.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the connection my brain was making.
Yeah.
I'm embracing this.
David said something that made David said something that made me reminded me of something, which was, I don't know how present in her mind it still was, but the breakup with Graham Nash wasn't that long ago, or might have involved a little bit of the songwriting, perhaps. I don't know what the chronology of when she wrote the song Court and Spark, but the idea of sort of saying no or walking away from something because it wasn't right, or she knew she couldn't be that person for Graham. maybe is part of what's happening here still. I'm leaving myself open to, some of that interpretation. Thank you, David.
Now, one thing I did notice is, it started on For the Roses, but I really feel like Joni's voice is it's settled down to a little bit lower of a range here. And I kind of divide Joni's voice maybe into 3 or 4 sections throughout her whole career. Of course, there's the early albums with, what do we call it? The helium?
Helium voice.
The helium voice. And then we have all these like kind of mid-range albums, and then the later ones are lower. Now, I'm just curious, the things I think of when I'm driving by myself, because I drive a lot for work, how long do you feel the Court and Spark voice lasts until? When did it start going into the other voice, in everyone's opinion?
Oh, past it, right?
Well,
Not long.
When did it leave the Court and Spark voice?
Right.
I'm gonna say Mingus. I think Mingus took it to a whole different place.
I'm not sure I agree with the premise, Jeremy, because there's quite a lot of tunes on Song to a Seagull where she doesn't sing high. She
Right.
can sing high, and she does, but she also sings deep.
Sure.
She had an amazing range, at least 2 octaves at that time,
Right.
and that continued up to Hejira. By Hejira, the melodies were very contained.
Okay.
She had very, very few, even backing vocals. On Song to a Sharon, there's some high backing vocals, but they're not that high. But on Help Me, she was overdubbed some very high harmonies. But Love Came to My Door. It's really low, So I'm not sure that you can generalize and say that she went from high to low, because
Sure.
obviously the late period after the smoking lowered her range all the way around. But at this time, her voice was an incredible instrument, and it could do just about anything.
So she had the instrument the whole time, but she just used it differently.
Song to a Seagull was actually lower than a lot of what she was touring with on television shows in Canada. She was on some of those singing standard folk songs, really, like Me and My Uncle, really, really high. And then suddenly when she came to record herself, chose
painting the pastel walls
Yeah.
brown.
Right. But Chris, to your point, that was the sound of Joan Baez, and in 1965, folk singers were expected to sing like that.
who she claimed was not an influence. Buffy St. Marie, maybe.
Well, that is exactly how Joan Baez sang, and on those unreleased tunes that I got to know, she sang very high, in very high keys, and it wasn't a flattering sound, actually.
Right.
And on that choral interlude in Car on a Hill where she sings, she's getting out pretty high there too, isn't she?
There's definitely a high harmony on top of it all.
It's high. It's high.
But Judy Collins was another one. She did say that Judy Collins was more of an influence in those liner notes for the archive box set than Joan Baez. She said never Joan Baez. I don't know why she denies that, because I hear it too.
All right. Well, do we have any thoughts on the song Court and Spark before we move on to track 2?
No, I want to say something about a voice, because I kind of agree with you, Jeremy, that I think starting kind of on Blue, but not all the way through Blue, but definitely in For the Roses and Here, and culminating in Hissing, I think, that her voice, whether it's higher or lower, is, I'll say, better. I mean, just that she just sings with a groundedness and a certainty and a depth, and that for these 5 middle albums, I guess, that isn't there on the earlier albums. And then
I agree.
I'll suggest this, that she started using her voice as an instrument, apart from just delivering a vessel to deliver lyric.
Well, she always did that. She always did that on Woodstock. You know, she always had the dweedly dees and stuff.
But she was writing. She was using it as part of the arrangement and around the arrangement, weaving it in a way that was orchestral. I mean, even I'll get to some discussion I have about her guitar work on this record too, which I think took a leap forward as well, just in terms of what she was bringing to the arrangement. But again, let's remember there's one unspoken character in this whole thing that she talks about in her autobiographical films, and a little bit of touched on was her exposure to the work of Duke Ellington and all of that Harlem and Havana stuff. That type of arrangement that Tom Scott actually did so well with, you know, the chorus and stacked woodwinds and horns and things like that, is going to start showing up everywhere. And again, like you said, David, culminating on Hissing.
And Sue, when you posted that Banquet live version from '83, I heard that's where I felt like the voice changed again for me. It's around Wild Things, as far as like the range.
Yeah.
And more so, you know, Dog Eat Dog.
I think it becomes more strained that she's working at it. But we'll talk about that.
Yes, coming up months from now. All right, so we are on track 1, and we're an hour and a half into the discussion. Does everyone have their coffee brewing? Bob, and we have to end. We cannot end without Bob telling us the cover versions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I thought I had you trained by now, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Slap your bald head.
Ah!
All right. So Court and Spark, 31 covers. The first one doesn't come till 1993. It's a guitar cover by electric guitar cover from Lenny Stern. Other notable covers later, Duncan Sheik covered this, and of course Herbie Hancock with Norah Jones on vocals on his Grammy-winning album also covered the song.
I thought Norah Jones did a nice version.
I heard Duncan Sheik do this at the in Central Park in 1999, was it? I think. Yeah.
How was that version?
It was beautiful. It's terrific. He played piano and sang it. It was wonderful.
All right. So track 2 is how I first heard about Joni Mitchell, because Prince has a song called The Ballad of Dorothy Parker. And there's a line in the song where he talks about she's in the bathtub and Joni Mitchell singing Help Me, I Think I'm Falling. It comes on the radio. So I was in my parents' car, and then the actual Help Me came on the radio, and I'm like, this is the song from the Prince song. And that so began my love affair with Joni Mitchell. Her biggest hit, the perfect pop single, but so much more than just a pop single. Do you know what I love her? The damn background vocals. Didn't it feel good? Like, didn't it feel good? If you ever pull up next to me in a red light and I'm playing Help Me, and I will be singing along to the background parts.
We all will. We won't be looking at you.
All right, so what do y'all think of Help Me? Who wants to start this one out? Sue.
So what I want to talk about for Help Me is when I was in my first band. So, and this is like not that long ago, like maybe like 15 years ago or so. I'm in my first band, and it was a cover band where the lead singer thought she was Natalie Merchant. Okay, so we played a lot of 10,000 Maniac songs, and you know, and they picked all these really crazy songs to play, right? Like some Casey and the Sunshine Band type of songs, you know. So, and you know, so I said to the guitar player, like, where do they get these songs? He goes, they're all on the local radio station. They're not, you know, the singers aren't really musicians. They pick the songs, and then we got to figure out how to play them, right? So one day, the lead singer comes in, and she goes, Sue, you like Joni Mitchell? Let's play a Joni Mitchell song. She goes, I really want to sing Help Me. So I was like, okay. You know? So, you know, I had played it on guitar. I mean, and you know, it's a weird tuning too. I think this is the only it's one of those tunings that isn't really copied in any other song. You know, it's a C sharp, I think, right, Dave? Something like that. I don't know.
Let me get the Book of Joel.
It's some kind
I
of
can't help you, Sue, because I do it in standard tuning.
yeah, I know, but it's like a C variant. Anyway, so I come to the practice and I start to play it, right, and I'm doing the lead singing and I'm playing rhythm guitar, and we start it and the drummer nails it and everybody else can't even sing along, right? It's just like really, really hard.
It's a crazy hard song to sing.
It's a crazy hard song to sing and to play. And but the thing is that we got to be really good at it because of the drummer. This woman was fantastic. Like, she nailed the drumming in this song. And we would go to our gig, and they made me start. I go, I start it, and she goes, help me, and it worked. I couldn't believe it, and it was really fun, but it was really hard. We really had to break our butts to get it. So, and yeah, I mean, the song is fantastic. It's just, it's hard to sing,
Tuning is CGEEBE.
Yeah,
So it's
that's a weird one.
C79075.
Wow.
It's a hard one.
So it's a unique tuning, and
Unique.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the vocals are just so, I mean, the layered vocals are just so beautiful, and the background singing and back to the topic too. I mean, this is another one of those songs where, help me, I'm falling in love, and it's gonna suck, and we're gonna do it anyway, It's like
Facts.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is, it comes on the heels of the first song, Court and Spark. She says, I couldn't let go of LA. This guy's knocking on her door. I couldn't let go of LA. Here's this guy, but I got to say no. Her very next line is, help me, I think I'm falling in love again. Right? So I'm not saying this is a cycle of an album, but I would say that maybe that song 1 inspires song 2.
But the thing is, the other thing is that the theme of freedom goes all through our albums, and this is
Cactus Tree, starting with Cactus Tree.
We both love our freedom, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing. She's a genius of love.
And those woodwinds too. So freaking good.
She might disagree with you on that one, Sue.
Well, she interprets the feelings brilliantly.
Yes, she does.
And also the disappointments and the maneuverings,
To me,
Crazy.
the line "We love our lovin', but not like we love our freedom" just kind of sums up the 70s in terms of romantic relationships. It's like everybody wants to be in love, but nobody wants to commit.
So what I love is, didn't feel good. We were sitting there talking or lying there not talking.
Yeah.
There's a bridge here too.
Yeah, there's a bridge. Dave, was your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to say that that this would have been the first record done on a 24 track. So like Clouds and Ladies of the Canyon, they were probably done on 8 track. Probably Blue was done on an 8 track. But by this album, she had so many tracks to work with that doing elaborate backing vocals or horn arrangements became suddenly feasible. And Max told me that she had really, by the time they did Court and Spark, she had really got good at knowing what the studio could do. Mm-hmm. And so she wasn't hesitant to try things, and you didn't have to erase something anymore to try something. You got to remember, when you've got limited tracks and you've run out of tracks, if you want to add something, you have to erase something. Mm. So that wasn't the case with 24.
Or mix it down.
So you got a lot more freedom to experiment with things and see if it worked. And if it did work, you could triple track it. So there's a real lushness to this that came with the technology suddenly available to her and everybody else. There are a lot of very lush albums that started to come out in 73, 74 because of that invention.
Just a shout out to Les Paul and Mary Ford. Thank you.
Starting with the 3 track. Yeah.
I think of the characters in Joni's song up to this point. We had Australia with her mom palm beads. We had Carrie, I feel like the lady with the hole in her stocking probably hadn't showed up in any of Joni's life or albums before. This is a new cast of characters that are kind of invited to the party this time around.
But she'll show up again, the lady
Yeah.
with the runner and nylons.
Yep. All right, who else wants to talk about Help Me?
Uncategorizable. Uncategorizable, is that a word? This song. I don't know what genre you call this song.
Perfection.
Don't know.
And I'll just add, I'll say it again for Jeremy and Alicia's sake, who are much younger kids. In '74, this song was everywhere on the radio. It was everywhere. Everywhere you went, they were playing Help Me from Joni Mitchell. In my high school cafeteria, on the AM radio, on the FM radio, everyone loved this track.
And she was on the cover of Time.
Yeah, she made the cover of Time.
Wow. Okay.
Mark, I see your hand is up.
To me, this song sets up themes of anxiety and insecurity that run throughout this record. I mean, Help Me, I'm Falling in Love Again. But she's unsure of herself. She's unsure of her partner. She's unsure of the relationship. And there just seems to be this anxiety and insecurity, I mean, in people's parties and through all the rest of the record.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a triad construction. Again, Too Fast, With You. Help Me, I think I'm falling in love again. Help me, I think I'm falling in love too fast. Help me, I think I'm falling in love with you. I mean, and each one is kind of worse and more and more of a risk. So that when she says with you, that's the ultimate risk that she's laying herself for here. That's how I always felt as I listened through the song and how the lyrics progressed to me on this.
And the word crazy runs throughout this record. The word crazy is repeated over and over again.
Until she ends up in a ward herself.
Yeah, with Cheech and Chong. Even the fade out of the song is perfection to me. It just kind of like fades out into Freeman and Pierce.
Well, Larry Carlton plays that beautiful guitar figure on the fade out, which is one of the tasty things about that. But to Chris's point, Both Sides Now, of course, has the classic 3-verse growth from clouds to love to life, and so this follows that same structure.
Right. Kind of circle game too, where they're going through the years.
But it has a very strong bridge, and we have to enjoy her bridges when we can get them, because she didn't always give us one.
I remember hearing somebody on The Voice sing this, and Blake Shelton made the remark, and I think it was, "Where is that? What is that song? Where does that song? I've never heard that song before."
No.
How many different time signature changes are there in that song? Or how many key changes? I can't remember what you said, but I can't stand him anyway. But
do you remember when a few years ago when Chaka Khan did this on that? I think it was the.
K.D. Lang did it on the TNT tribute.
Yeah, but this was one where Herbie was.
Chaka Khan did it at the 75th birthday party.
Yeah, she did, but she did it a few years before that and totally bombed. They had to bring in another singer the next morning before the show aired.
Oh, no.
She couldn't remember the words and she couldn't remember the melody.
Yeah, she did it in Joni's Jazz at Central Park.
No, this was a like a Mitsubishi Presents or some Japanese TV or Japanese company sponsoring this TV show. What was that?
Like Suntory would have done something like that.
This would have been since I joined the JMJ also, where this would have been maybe 12 years ago, 11 or 12 years ago.
I will say this, that K.D. Lang had her issues singing it at TNT. They helped her out a bit with post-production. But she did a fine job nonetheless. It just wasn't her normal, preternaturally high standard of vocal.
It's a very difficult tune.
Yeah.
Now, I saw, when Sue posted the banquet from 1983, I started looking at all the set lists from the tour. And I saw that she did help me maybe once or twice on that tour. Has anyone ever heard the 1983 version? Because I'm, first of all, kind of scared of that. I don't know if I ever want to, but I'm morbidly curious of how it sounded. Has anyone ever heard
Oh, yeah. I'll have it. She did an 83 show in California and was a 24-song set. She pretty much did everything she did on the tour on that show.
How was that 83 version? Did they rock it up or?
I'd have to listen to it. It's been a while, probably 20 years since I've heard that recording.
Though Banquet's the only one that they really transformed that dramatically on that tour.
Well, Song for Sharon.
See, when I saw that tour, I don't remember seeing Song for Sharon. I don't know if they eliminated it when I saw it, but
I had to think. I saw that tour, and since I live so close to New York, she had to have done "Song for Sharon," and I can't remember being, a flabbergasted one way or the other by it.
Yeah, she rocked "Song for Sharon" out the same way she did "Banquet."
Boy, that's gonna be an interesting discussion when we get to the Wild Things Run Fast. I listened to the Cotton Avenue from that tour. Ooh. All right. David, I see your hand is up.
Hands up. I'm wondering if this is when Joni first started to have to engage with come on, you're a folk singer, stop changing, stop being that way. Because I know that a friend of mine really did not like this song because she said, I just can't relate to flirting around, flirting, and she said, I cannot relate to a sweet talking ladies man. And I part of that complaint was, where's the dulcimer, so yeah.
This sounds like what Rufus Wainwright heard when growing up. This is probably around the time his family was like, yeah, Joni's kind of selling out here.
Oh, really? I don't know what Rufus. I don't know quite what you're talking about.
That dulcimer's way in the back of the closet by now.
Well, to me, this record is like the beginning of what could be her most important run of records. From here through Mingus, to me, these are the most interesting records, and so a lot of people probably are thinking, where is the dulcimer? What is all this other instrumentation? Where is she going? This doesn't sound like Joni Mitchell. And well, Joni Mitchell never sounded like the same from one record to the next, and she was growing. Her life experiences were changing her, and she was never interested in staying the same. So the audience wasn't dropping off yet. I mean, this was a huge success, and she brought on new listeners. But eventually, the experimentation and the addition of more jazz elements and things would start to lose some of these people that loved the simplicity of the acoustic guitar or the piano or the dulcimer, I think. This is just the beginning of it.
Yeah, we're about to go on a wild ride here for a while. All right, any thoughts on Help Me? Anyone else want to jump in and give some thoughts? All right. So on For the Roses. Okay.
Covers?
Oh, Bob. Oh,
all right. So
there goes my
Help
bald
Me
head again.
Her biggest hit ever. This had the most covers of it, 87 so far. First one came up in 74 when the album was released by a Canadian guitarist, Terry Frewer, on a Canadian broadcasting LP where they had a assortment of artists and whatnot, pretty random. But substantial recordings. Katie Lang, who we've noted before, she said this was a damn hard song to sing. Winona Judd recorded it. Chaka Khan sang it at the birthday party, and Mandy Moore put it on her coverage record.
Mandy Moore, how was that version?
It's nice. Mandy Moore's a huge Joni fan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's also on Safari to the Heart.
Yes. Yeah. Most of these songs, all these songs have been covered by the Mutts of the Planet. Every
Not
single
all
one
of
of
them.
them.
As many as we could manage. Yeah.
All right. So on the song For the Roses, Joni was talking about the music industry. But the next song we're about to go into, not only is she talking about herself within the context of the music industry, she's now sleeping on the executive's couch.
Yeah.
And he's vacationing in Paris until he has to come back to deal with the record label. And was For the Roses the first album on Asylum? And then this is the second, right? David Geffen's label.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
So David Geffen was the founder of Asylum Records, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And Joni Mitchell's living at his house with Cher. All right, so what do y'all think of Free Man in Paris?
I want to be a fly on the wall for those dinners.
Well, it came from a.
I'm gonna bring my little my. It was such a pleasure as a gay man to say, that very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
It was great. It's like, oh, I know what she means.
Well, it was based on a vacation that she went on with David Geffen and I can't remember, was it Elliot Roberts and his wife? The four of them went to Paris for just a few days, I think, just to get mostly to get Geffen away because he was really stressed out. And so she kind of observed him and kind of put him down in song.
In the days before the cell phone.
In the days before the cell phone, yes. And yes, he was out to meet that very good friend of his. As we later found out.
I think the strongest part about this song is the chorus. It's just a fabulous chorus with 3-part harmony, and it's the main thing that sticks with you. It's a very short song. The flutes are the flute arrangement is striking, but it's such a brilliant chorus, just like "Help Me" is. But even better, because it's really a classic pop song, and it's classic in a pop song length too. It's under 3 minutes.
Her rhythm guitar is fierce on this song.
Yeah.
Different.
It's really the perfect song after "Help Me" because I remember listening to Cord and Spark for the first time, and I hadn't heard any of these songs but "Help Me," and I just remember thinking this is the perfect song after that. I didn't know it was about David Geffen till years later.
Love that line. I felt unfettered and alive. It's a great.
Well, the whole record is just fit together so beautifully. One song just. You couldn't rearrange it, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
You couldn't make it any better by rearranging any track on that record.
But I bet the 8-track tape tried to.
Oh yeah. Down to You, Part 1 and Part 2.
In the middle of the song.
Yeah.
Car on a hill. Waiting for
Alicia, you were spared that technology. The 8-track cassette. It was an early 70s thing to try to get albums to play in cars, but they had to reorder the tracks.
8 tracks?
8 tracks.
Yes.
Did you ever see one of those?
I've seen one like at flea markets, but I
Yeah.
know that it came in and went out the door and like
They sounded horrible, and they messed up the flow of the record because they had to change it up, and there was nothing to like about them. They were bulky and.
Ostensibly, the only benefit was that you didn't have to stop and flip it over to another side. So you could keep your eyes on the road and hear an entire album. I guess that's why it was said to be good for cars or other.
I'd rather risk my life and hear it in the proper order.
And plus, they used to melt in my car when I went to Smith Point on Long Island. Come back to listen to it, and it was all like, ugh.
The labels were always bubbling off.
Oh yeah, yep.
They
Jack,
were
was your hand up? Jack, was your hand up? Did I miss you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I find interesting about this song is that it sort of repeats a theme of giving up something you love for something that you love more, but in a completely different way. You know, she talks about it in other songs, but here he's a free man in Paris and he's happier than hell and blah, blah, blah. But he's giving it all up to go back to the making machinery, which obviously he loves, the power or whatever it was, but that drove him more than being a free man in Paris. And it's kind of like her other stuff, giving up love because she doesn't want to, give up her freedom kind of thing. Anyway.
Studio 54 was not too far in David Geffen's future, right? All right. Any other thoughts on Free Man in Paris? Alicia?
Yeah. The only thing I can think, to contribute is when I listen to this song, I always think, because I work in business, so the whole, I'm doing my best, I do a good business, to me, I feel like I understand. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. She's talking about herself and her world, but you can relate. You get the dreamers, you get the screamers. I've done customer service. So that's kind of that thing where you understand, but certain lines like that pop in my head when I'm at work because of this song. It's just how y'all always want to kind of leave the craziness that's happening. So.
Well, she's of course writing from the perspective of David Geffen, though, not her own.
Ah, okay.
That's why it's I was a free man in Paris. She writes the whole lyric as if through his eyes. He's the one with the Star Maker machinery and dealing with people's futures.
Okay.
But he also did have to deal with the dreamers and telephone screamers for sure. Which I had a few at work today. Which is why I'm glad I'm here. Yeah, this is one of those songs. It's a character sketch, so there's not tons to say about it because it's just the story.
Yeah, and that's important because we talk about transition from album to album, and of course her next album, Hissing, will be almost all character sketches and portraits.
Right.
This one has a couple. The next one has almost all. But so that transition continues.
There were fewer songs about her own vulnerability and starting to become more and more vignettes about characters. And I think that was liberating because she didn't want to always be singing about plumbing the depths of her own insecurities.
Sure. Yeah.
I agree with that. And I think that what she's done here is she's sort of carved herself into sort of snippets of her own character, sort of sketching herself out a little bit in each one of the songs, as opposed to all of herself in every one of the songs. And that I think is a little bit, a bit different because I think she got to be freer. She could, concentrate on the music, more so the arrangement, the production. That was, she was building the art differently here than I think she had on previous records.
I thought this album was very much a transition because we're jumping ahead of song, but like People's Parties, it's very much a character sketch, but she's also turning the mirror on herself. So it's kind of that's the middle ground between where she's been with the really introspection and where'd she go with taking herself out of the picture and just having the character sketch. So I feel like Horn Spark kind of falls in the middle of looking inward and looking outward. Because earlier she only looked inward mostly, and then for a while she would just look outward. Of course, then we had Hajira come in, which is a whole nother journey. All right, any other thoughts on?
Ready for it again, then.
Yeah. Bob, talk to us about the cover songs.
So Free Man was released as a single, so it has lots of covers, not quite as many as Help Me, 85 in all. First recorded by the Sound Effects in 1974. And the Sound Effects have to be one of these corny studio bands who put out hits, recorded hits of the day on a K-Tel, long play record. But there they are, the Sound Effects. Who knows? Maybe Dave Blackburn was one of the Sound Effects. I don't know. But it was some famous recordings. Neil Diamond, of course, did it in his Neil Diamond way. The way I see it, he says, you just can't win it. Very dramatic, Neil Diamond fashion. And Elton John recorded a studio version for her failed Reprise tribute album. Never came out. He did it at the
TNT, yes.
TNT recording. Sufjan Stevens recorded it for the official Reprise tribute that came out years later.
Bob, do you know what the B-side was on her single?
On Free Man in Paris was People's Parties was the B-side.
Damn, what a B-side, right?
And it had to have the ending on it. It didn't segue into. Okay, got it.
All right. So speaking of People's Parties, Sue, do you want to treat us to a performance as we discuss the song instead of at the end? So Alicia, one thing different about the Joni Mitchell series is our friends here share music with us throughout the podcast.
Oh, well, okay. I've noticed that there's a lot more musicians in this group than the Stevie crowd.
Right.
I think Steven's the only one that seems to be a musician or engineer person besides you.
That's why I love the 4 different series I do, because each one's like totally different. And I love them all. Except for when my best friend talked about erotica, but we won't talk about that. All right.
Sue, your setup is so elegant. You could immediately transition from just talking to performing. I'm jealous. I'm so jealous.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, this is my setup where I make my videos. I was actually working on another video for the website today of Gemini Twin. Has anybody heard that one from the archive?
Oh yeah, sure.
I have, yes.
I just did a tab for it, and I want to do a video to go with it. It's a pretty strange song, but I love it.
Hey, Sue, your volume is a tiny bit low. Is there any way to turn it up a tiny bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if this... Does that sound better?
I think so.
It sounds better when you're leaning into the mic, too. So
Yeah,
maybe it's the mic.
Well, yeah, okay. All right. So let me scooch over. All right, so I'm going to do it now. All the people at this party, they've got a lot of style. They've got stamps in many countries. They've got passports, smiles. Some are friendly, some are cutting, some are watching it from the wings. Some are standing in the center, giving a good something. Little bitty gets attention, and her heartbeat's running down. She's got her rose in her teeth and a lampshade crown. 1 minute she's so happy, then she's crying on someone's knees and laughing and crying. You know it's a sick release. I told you when I met you I was crazy. Cry for a soul beauty and cry for Eddie in the corner. Think it is a nobody and Jack behind his joker and Stone Cold please behind her fan. And me and left right in silence thinking I don't understand. most part is fumbling, deaf, dumb, and blind. I feel like I'm singing. Anyway, oh, I did that verse right. I wish I had more sense of humor. I sometimes keep it the sadness if it throws lightness on these things, laughing it all away. Laughing it all away. Laughing it all away. Laughing it all away.
Thank you, Sue. So yes, I totally see the song as kind of the bridge between For the Roses and Hissing. We got the character sketch. We also have the mirror turned inward. What do y'all think of this song? Jack.
Yeah, this is a great one. Probably the line that gets me the most, and I've used several times in real life, is saying laughing and crying, you know, it's the same release.
Sure.
I had a niece who died of ovarian cancer when she was 16. And after the funeral, we were back at their house, you know, for a lunch or whatever. And I was there with my wife and her sister, and we were just laughing our asses off. And one of the aunts was just like mortified. And I told her, I said, hey, laughing and crying, you know, it's the same release. So anyway, that's the line that always gets to me.
Now, Jack, was it you that was behind the Joker at the party?
It could be. I would have a hard time denying that.
David, is your hand up?
Yeah. It gets kind of boring, but this is a great song. It's a fabulous song. And it just so, it's actually about this time of my life. I think in, rather than come out as a gay man, I just shut down. And so this feeling and the words, you're just living on nerves and feelings of a weak and a lazy mind and fumbling, deaf, dumb, and blind. It's just great, you know? And the end, you know, the laughing it all away shit. I mean, it's a fabulous song, but they all are. So what else is new?
Yes, Sue, I was singing along with you on mute. Laughing it all away. The best. The best. All right, anyone else?
I discovered on very careful listening that laughing it all away part at the end was actually done with an echoplex. She didn't sing it like that. She sang it once, and then this tape echo machine did the loop, and it's not perfectly in sync with the tempo because you couldn't quite get it perfectly in sync back then. So, but if you listen to how warbly it is, that's what tape echo was like. It never gave you back exactly what you put in. So she was already into studio experiments like that in 1973. This album came out in 74, but she recorded it in 73. So that was pretty gutsy for that time to do that, you know, to have her own vocals go into an echoplex and use that. And then Jaco, we haven't got to Hejira yet, but when at the end of Hejira, that's Jaco playing through an echoplex too, so she must have liked it.
And then the high harmonies on top really sounds like laughing. I can't hit those notes, but it's just brilliant. Okay,
yeah, that's why she used an echo, so she wouldn't have to hit it over and over again.
I don't blame her.
The 12 string is beautiful on this song.
Dave, in terms of an arrangement and the production, isn't this maybe the simplest track on the album?
Yeah, but it really features that glorious 12 string, and that's something we haven't heard since Cold Blue Steel and Sweet Fire.
And as simple as the song is, I couldn't picture it on any album before this one. Even if the instrumentation, is a little bit more sparse, there's no way in hell.
It's a big LA record. I mean, I think we've all, at least I have, been to parties where Photo Beauty is rocking the party to start with, and then next thing you know, her eye paint's running down, and she's crying on someone's knee, and there's all this drama, So, I mean, I think Joni totally nails the whole set and scene what's going on at this party.
And this was the time when she was living with David Geffen, and I think she was starting to attend a lot of these functions with a lot of these high-profile celebrities. And so she was seeing a lot of this behavior going on. Yeah. And I think maybe she was feeling a little bit like, I'm just living on nerves and feelings with a weak and a lazy mind and coming to people's parties laughing at, fumbling, deaf, dumb, and blind. I'm with David. I felt like that quite a lot at that point in my life.
I felt that she distilled the superficiality of that party to the point where I almost didn't care about this song. It's so lyrically dense. It's so lyrically dense and so full. She's speeding through this entire situation, never really pausing to care about anybody enough, which makes me feel bad. I mean, worse for the people attending it, but bad enough for Joni that she's not authentic in some way. That said, I also walk away from this song feeling like there could have been another verse, or there should have been another verse, and it's this much underwritten, and I don't know what else it needed. But I just, there's something that is incomplete for me about it. Even though I wouldn't change a note, and in the scheme of the entire record, I couldn't imagine it built any other way. But
I think it's the experience without her processing it at all. It's just all of this coming to her, almost like
completely observational. Completely observational.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty much
assumed.
It's pretty much assumed that Jack is Jack Nicholson, who was a big LA party goer, and that Grace is Grace Slick.
No, the Photo Beauty, with the lampshade recently has been talked about on a couple of the different forums, and I can't remember the woman's name.
Her name was Apollonia.
Apollonia, that's right.
I just have a problem.
Apples Only is what Jack Nicholson called her. Apples Only.
Not to be confused
with problem with Grace Slick holding.
Well, I was going to say Apollonia. That's a Prince girl.
Yeah, she was too young for that party. Maybe it's a different Apollonia.
Bob, I don't see Grace Slick holding a fan. But it's not an image.
She would have made parties on the West Coast for sure.
Oh yeah.
Anytime I've attended a social gathering,
maybe a fan's not a real fan, but some young boy toy fan.
Oh, I never thought of that. I think of any time I've attended an event like this, I always did feel underwhelmed and just sped my way through it. So I feel the song is exactly how I've navigated stuff like that. Anyone else want to talk about people? Alicia, what do you think of this one? I'm curious.
Well, I think this is one of those. I like this song. It's one of the songs that it took me a while because you don't realize how accurate she is in depicting people until you start going to parties and watching. And I'm more of an observer, being an introvert. But she really does talk about everybody, and she does nail, the girl who is very full of herself and who does realize she's got the sex appeal and really is putting herself out in the middle of the audience, so to speak, and showing off. And you got the people that are not sure of themselves, that don't have the confidence, hiding behind their whatever it is, if it's a book or if it's their fan, and she uses it. I mean, it's really interesting. You have the Joker, the people that are cutting up and trying to get attention that way. So, I mean, it's a great character sketch, as you guys were saying earlier. But you don't realize how accurate she is. And she's talking about how we all need that love and that and how we get it and how we cope in this song. So I love the song, but it's a very it's a lot deeper than just, or I've come to realize it's a deeper song than just what's there at the surface the first time listening to it.
I will think back later on to this song when I consider Art Nouveau, a couple albums ahead. But I will think back to this song.
Good old Art Nouveau. This song also makes me realize I really don't miss going to parties at all. Dave,
don't you think this song makes the perfect intro to Same Situation?
Oh
yeah, of course.
I mean, if it had an extra verse like Chris mentioned, then it would not have fed so nicely as an overture into Same Situation, which is I guess we're about to talk about, but they really do pair well, essentially together. You can't really separate the two.
The after party.
That's when I would be cursing my iPhone for playing this and then not playing Same Situation.
Dave, I wish I could agree with you 100% on that, but I can't. I think I can listen to the Same Situation starting from a completely blank slate. I don't need to have it bouncing off of People's Parties somehow.
I don't think I meant that, Chris. I just meant that People's Parties works very well as a flow into the situation. And if it had been longer, I think it would have felt differently. But
no, that's probably right.
I'm more of a fan of Same Situation than People's Parties, but I love how one flows into the other.
That's an interesting point, though. Out of all of Joni's albums, this is the one that I find most jarring to hear the songs either out of order or not next to each other. I don't feel quite as strongly about the other albums.
I got Apple Music a while back, and I can't do the shuffle thing. If I'm going to listen to my music, I'm listening to the whole albums. I have to, like I was listening to Gordon Lightfoot and I had to listen to the whole, album of Sundown, or Don Quixote. I couldn't just get the songs shuffled,
And that's why we're here, right? Because we're album lovers.
Yeah.
And this album was a quadraphonic release. Was it the only one of Joni's canon? I know that Chris has the quad release,
and I have Hissing as well.
Hissing is a quad, yeah. So yes. There were some differences with those recordings.
You know what? Court and Spark, I've pinched both of them down to stereo. Court and Spark is pretty much the same, except that on the quad, the two tracks are separated.
Okay. Right. The song ends before
that's
Same Situation begins.
That's correct.
Interesting.
On Hissing, however, there was, pardon of my French, there was fuckery on the mixes for sure. Or the mastering was completely different. In many ways, I actually prefer the pinched stereo from the quad to what we were sold as the stereo master for that.
And we'll get there. We'll get there.
Not that I don't prefer Dave's to all of them, but it's anyway. Hissing, I have my issues with Hissing, just as a consumer.
Well, Bob, before we move on to Same Situation, who covered People's Parties?
Not a lot. 29 covers in all. The first one wasn't until 1992.
Oh,
Kevin Littau from Australia. That's a she. It's a nice recording. It's been recorded in Swedish from a different artist later. And then Jeff Buckley did it on his Live at Chennai bootleg recordings. He records part of it. And it's not a really good recording, but there it is. So that's People's Parties.
All right, so same situation. We're leaving the party, and now there's a pretty girl checking out her sex appeal in the mirror. What do y'all think of same situation? Obviously, we all think it's brilliant, right? This is
Of course.
I feel this big listening to that song. I'm serious. It reduces my importance on the planet. Just seems to. I am so insignificant.
with Heaven Full of Astronauts and the Lord on
The whole bit. It's just I am such a short moment in time that is so unimportant. Very few pieces she has written strike me to that level of.
Well, in the 70s when the song came out, it was 74, was the whole God is dead movement. So when she says, the Lord's on death row, I think maybe stemmed from that discussion
Nietzsche.
at the time.
She named her cat Nietzsche.
Yeah.
David, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm just lifting this from one of the academic conferences that were happening in the late 90s and early noughts. And somebody was talking about Joni always denying feminism, just saying, I've never been a feminist, I'm not a feminist, I'm not a feminist. And this feminist scholar said, like a church, like a cop, like a mother, you want me to be truthful. Now, that's feminist social theory right there, and it's fabulous. I mean, it's just a fabulous triumvirate, like a church, like a cop, like a mother. You want me to be truthful, and you turn it on me a weapon, and I need your approval. I mean, that's deep.
I feel like if heaven does exist, it's when Joni hits the high notes here. Like that's as close as I can get. Send me somebody that's strong and somewhat sincere. Like I'll take
somewhat sincere.
I'll take fucking somewhat sincere at this point. Please.
I think you're right. I think that's one of my favorite Joni lines ever is like a church, like a cop, like a mother, you want me to be truthful. That whole piece is just I don't know if she ever got any better than that. I don't know. And I just, something popped into my head just now. When I was 22, I got dumped and I printed out in an 8x10, just an 8x10 piece of paper and put it in a frame and hung it in my living room for like a month. I sent up my prayer wondering who is there to hear, send me somebody that's strong and somewhat sincere. And it just made me feel better for the month that I was dumped. And since then I've been married. I've been married to the guy that dumped me for 22 years at this point. So it worked out, but that it made me feel better. And that one line, I was like, somebody understands. And I probably still have it in a frame somewhere in the garage, but yeah.
I think that was one of them that really got to me too. Yeah.
I think of the dating world now, and with Tinder, you're just weighing someone's beauty and imperfection for 2 seconds.
I have what is probably kind of a dumb question here, but it's something that has always confused me just a little bit. When she sings, again in the same situation for so many years, tethered to a ringing telephone in a room full of mirrors, is she talking about the man there, or is she talking about herself?
I think it's a man, but I don't know.
I always thought it was the man too.
I think you're probably right, and I think for a long, long time I was wrong.
Never thought about it the other way.
I don't know why.
A pretty girl in your bathroom is certainly,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting that this tune is a waltz in 3/4, but the intro is in 5/4. So on both counts, it's an unusual for a pop record.
And of course, as we all know, Joni probably, I don't know if she starts here, but her themes of duality that carry on through so much of her work. She talks about the struggle for higher achievement and her search for love. You know, things that one or the other.
And it sticks around.
Yeah.
She seems to draw the distinction. She draws the distinction between higher position and higher achievement.
Yeah, she also mirrors them into the distinction, but in a way she's saying, I'm not like you, you know.
Yeah. This is the millions of the lost and lonely ones that have that higher position. That are looking for the higher position.
Position is applied by others, but achievement is internal. You know, that's where I walk away with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. Caught in my struggle for higher achievement.
I feel like in the world of social media, when there's so little emphasis on maybe growing the soul and the emotions, the line really strikes me. Millions lost and lonely ones call out and clamor to be found. More than ever. More than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Which is why I love you all, because I feel like, I'm getting emotional. But there's a place to be heard in this world. And that's so important.
I'm telling you, I get just sucked into the entropy whenever I hear this record. This song.
Jeremy, you found us.
Oh!
We were clamoring and now we're found.
It's true, though. You just got to value it when you find it.
What a beautiful melody.
I was just thinking of that. The singing is amazing. And the Lord.
So that, you know how a pre-chorus is also known as a climb. And her pre-chorus in this really climbs, you know, the bass line climbs, and I send up my prayers. The lyrics are about climbing and the chords are climbing. It's just, she was so good at songcraft. When she wanted to do classic song form, she was great at it. She just chose not to, but that often, but it wasn't because she couldn't.
Yeah.
That's why she was, why Help Me was such a hit, is because it fits the formula. I mean, it's not the only reason, but it's not weird. It sounds like pop music.
It has a bridge, Dave.
It has a bridge, but it has a great chorus, and it has a totally memorable set of hooks, both the words "Help Me," "Think I'm Falling in Love Again," but also instrumental hooks. So she was totally capable of being a successful pop writer had she chosen to stick with that. I guess it didn't interest her ultimately to stick with that, but she showed that she could do it.
Her sense of composition was incredible to me. I mean, it just seemed like all her songs just balanced perfectly, you know, and really, you know, are complete. You know, there's no, I mean, even though, you know, you think about like songs like Marcy that were so well crafted, and that was on her first album, you know. And I just think about all the way, like you were talking about the climbing, and it just brings you to this crescendo, and then, you know.
And this is what's amazing. We all listen to a record, you know, when it comes out, and we scratch our heads and we say, I love this, but why do I love it? It's different. It's not falling into the mold. And yes, there are elements of pop, you know, construction here, but take this song we're talking about now. We recognize it now as, again, like Sue was saying, fully complete. But when we're hearing it those first few times, we're saying to ourselves, there's so much question here. It just doesn't resolve in the way that we could, and in the way that what I am gleaning from it right now, I can explain this to somebody else readily, you know, and I can trust that they'll hear it and understand it. That's what's so unique and so magical about her work, is that it's not for everybody, and it is sophisticated. And damn it, I don't care if we're music snobs or what, but you know, we at least can recognize that it's full, and it's, Sue, here's your words, wholly formed. It's, you know, you describe that. If you ever write a book about Joni, that's what you have to call it. Fully formed.
I feel like this song, and I feel like this may be a controversial statement, but I feel like this is the grown-up version of some of the seeds that were planted with the arrangement. A more fully formed, the emotional complexity.
Well, she wrote arrangement for a film, so that may or may not even relate.
Right.
But I mean, the theme is what it is. Yeah, it's corporate America. Not being really real.
Right. A much, much, much better exploration of this topic.
Yeah.
I still like the arrangement.
That's the topic at all.
That's actually but you know what? It can be, because a room full of mirrors could be you're just one of an army of executives, just like the
But
rest
it's
of them.
like about beauty, I don't know. Beauty and trying to be attractive, and do you like me? And I don't think that's what the arrangement is about at all. But am I enough? Am I enough? I think that's why it's just like that's why people's parties is such a great intro to it. This sort of, I don't know what's going on here. I see everything, but I'm going to pretend I don't get it because I don't know what to do.
I'll sign on to that bus ride. Yeah. Okay.
I think I'm zeroing more into the lines like in the search for higher position, the search for higher achievement. Only that little thing is what I connect to the arrangement. Everything else is that little bit plus 8,000 other things.
I think I read somewhere that somebody's opinion was that this song was about Warren Beatty, and I don't really buy that at all. But
he just always shows up, doesn't he?
No backstory. No backstory.
Yeah. Woo, let's keep Warren Beatty out.
I don't want to hear it.
I don't know why where they came up with that, but a room full of mirrors. I don't know. You're so vain.
All right. Well, do we have any covers of Same Situation?
We have 10. Most of them are disposable, with the exception of one, and it was the first one that came out in 1990. Clive Gregson and Christine Collister, British guitarist and vocalist. It's an amazing recording. I would say, if you love this song, go search that recording out. It's probably on YouTube. I don't know, but it's just amazing. It's so amazing. I friended her on Facebook just so I could tell her how much I loved the recording of this song.
Who is it?
Christine Collister with Clive Gregson playing guitar.
Did she write you back?
She did. Yeah. She friended me.
Aww.
And she said, I can't believe I'm friends with Bob Mueller. It's like, what?
All right. So do we have any thoughts on the Same Situation before we take a little break?
Can't imagine world without it.
Oh. I can't, yeah. All right. We'll be back in a few. All right, folks. It's time for side 2 of Court and Spark. This is a great podcast because we're like, that song's great. That song's great. That song's great. Which has been awesome with this album. There hasn't been any that song's not great yet. And I don't know if there will be. So we're
There will be. There will be. Oh, there will be.
I will say that I like side 1 better than side 2. Generally. The side 2 opens with a couple masterpieces, in my opinion, and then we'll get to that, I guess. So welcome back. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, do so. If you want to throw me a couple dollars, it keeps me from going to the beach and watching the sunset because I feel obligated. And I'm having the fucking great time with my buds here talking about Joni. So there's a character that would show up many years later on Turbulent Indigo on a song called Not to Blame, rumored to be Jackson Browne. But did he make an appearance first in Car in a Hill? Wasn't this rumored to be about Jackson Browne?
Yeah.
Oh, to be, yeah.
An asshole then and an asshole now, right? Oh, here comes the thumbs down from the Jackson Browne fans. You know what? So if Jackson Browne is an asshole, I'd like to thank him for it because we got a couple really good songs out of it.
Well, let's talk to Daryl Hannah. See what she has to say.
I remember the first time I heard Car on a Hill, I was like, holy shit, this is a really great song. It's one of those songs, I loved it the first time I heard it, and I loved it just as much when I heard it yesterday. And I'm a headphones guy. Listen to this on the headphones. Perfection.
She really kind of ramps up the drama in a really subtle way on this one. And it, by the time you get to the middle with that insane wordless vocal that is so high and loud that it sort of distorts when it plays on everything I've ever played it on. It never sounds right. It's just like, whoo.
I love the big start with the toms and the drums. It says immediately, yeah, you flipped the record over. Did you think they were leaving? No.
Yeah. Another sitting at the stoplight, the red light, singing the vocals moment for me is the hey, 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 like I remind to just do that over and over because I love that part so much. So has anyone been stood up? I guess my version is waiting for the car in the parking lot.
Has anyone not been stood up?
Yeah, really. Better question, Reuben.
Yeah.
But my God, he said he'd be over 3 hours ago, and you're still waiting for him?
Been there.
Come on.
Nope. 20 minutes, then you go do something else.
Dump the asshole is what I say.
Well, this was before cell phone too. I mean, there wasn't the instantaneous, communications were not available.
You're sitting there listening to Doctor My Eyes on repeat.
Now, wasn't in Girls Like Us, didn't somebody, some unnamed source, relate to Sheila Weller that Joni supposedly had a big breakdown that night and broke some glass and cut herself and did all this other.
I think was that in Sheila Weller's book, or was it in Michelle Mercer's book?
Oh, it was?
I think it was in Michelle Mercer's book.
No, I think it was in Girls Like Us because I haven't read Michelle Mercer's book.
Yeah.
Either way, I hear that darkness in the music.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't read either, and I'm glad not to know this story.
It's a backstory. See, it happens every time.
I don't buy it.
But that's one of my favorite Joni quotes, actually, when she's talking about that specific thing. And she said, I read that I'd gone crazy and was cutting myself. And she said, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy. It was funny.
Oh, really? I don't think I've seen that.
I can't remember.
Good for her.
It might have been I feel like it was in the new biography. I'll have to look at it.
That's possible. I haven't read that one.
I just love the
lyrics. And she returns to the theme of the album when she says, and there's so much laughter and so much spark.
Right.
Back to spark.
But just the lyrics. He's a real good talker. I think he's a friend. Like just those lines when you really think about him, like, I think he's a friend. Fast tires come screaming around the bend.
She has more opportunities in her songs to describe people she is afraid to trust, that she cannot necessarily believe whether or not their smiles mean what they say or the words coming out of their mouth are actual, she just can't trust people to be transparent with her, which is so sad. I don't know what it would take if I ever, had an opportunity to talk with her, to say, I want you to trust me, and if you don't trust me, call me out on it the very second you don't, because I don't want it to go on, because that's terrible. It's a terrible thing to live with, to live knowing somebody that you can't, you don't know whether or not you can take them at face value.
I feel like it really started on, of course in the early stuff, but on Woman of Heart and Mind. What is it? Do you really laugh? Do you really smile when you smile? And, that carries right over to this record.
And coming from the gold, same thing. I mean, Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole he makes friends easy. He's not like me. I watch for judgment anxiously. You know, I mean, that's all of us, right? Everyone here, we're all right there.
We all want validation. We all want validation. God.
And the beautiful thing about this piece of music is it's the lyrics, it's the music, it's the way the music sounds. Like there's so many reasons why this song is so good. David, I saw your hand was up.
Yeah, just because we've been thinking about the lyrics of "The Car on the Hill," I've been thinking of "Come on, David, nothing can be done," and kind of a similar situation, but 10 years later or whatever,
right?
And a very different way of sitting at home dealing with somebody else leaving or going or not being there, whatever.
And even the lyrics of that one, she's like, "I'm not old, I'm told."
Yeah. I heard you screaming down the mountain.
But I'm not young.
That's an amazing song.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling Bob, I think it was before everyone came on, that there's always the first album you go to, and Night Ride Home is one of the first ones I always go to for Joni Mitchell. So
me too.
Let's set aside 10 hours for that night. Alicia, I just had to ask out of curiosity, have you ever heard Night Ride Home from 91?
No, I have not.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, we're like Alicia, you gotta hear Night Ride.
They're all good ones.
Yeah.
The problem with Joni is that her records are so thick. I remember reading, and this was like 10 years ago, somebody made the comment, you have a lot of music is like getting a gallon or the 5-gallon buckets for strawberries. It's great, but after about 20 or 30, you're sick. I mean, they're really, there's not much to them. But then Joni is the one who's creating this full 3. She's creating that home cooked meal, the pot roast with the mashed potatoes, with the green beans, with the bread, and then you got the cobbler for dessert. I mean, there's a lot to go through. So I've found out it takes me a good year, maybe even 2 years, to kind of go through each album because she's very thick.
I love that too. I love that.
So I mean, Stevie, I was able to go through in like 6 or 7 years, and I'm like 15 years in Joni's, and I think I've gone through maybe 4. But it just takes so much. She just has so much she can pack into a record, and she seems to pick words very meticulously. Like if she's using a word, there's a reason.
Yeah.
She doesn't waste space. Stevie wastes space like there's no tomorrow. I think that's why she always has 10-minute songs. But Jeremy understands.
That's why we have Jane on Street Angel, but that's a whole nother podcast.
But that's what makes Joni so different. And I think that's why when I first heard her and really got into her, she stands out from a lot of the artists that I grew up listening to or I hear in my contemporary music from the 2000s and 2010. She's a very different musician. As far as Car on the Hill, I feel like this and then Down to You, she really blends that jazz, symphony, I love this song. I love the groove. I like how it's it has that suspense. And but yes, everything you guys have already said. No sense in repeating. But
even the fade out is. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say like you were saying, I hear the Ellington coming out here in a way that we haven't heard it. It's got a really kind of almost urban scored sound to it. In especially in the horn section. I think if Tom Scott was responsible for the horns, he did a terrific job on taking cues from both the lyric and just the vibe of the pulse of the melody itself, and really distilled something pretty appropriately powerful for it. He did a great job with this. The only thing that I'm going to ask you, Jeremy, since you listen to it so often with headphones, is do you hear distortion in the background vocals, especially during that sort of high kind of banshee kind of? There's distortion in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard it on every remaster possible. I mean, the gold disc, the half mastered vinyl, everything. It's baked in. There's no way, and I'm really surprised that nobody kind of dialed that down somehow. Or
maybe when we get the archives.
Or that they found it was an appropriate choice. It was an artistic choice to have it. I don't know.
I even love on the song how the fade out is very ominous. Like from beginning to end, it's just eerie. And that the hi-hat at the end is so this song. I can't even talk about it. It's so good.
Well, I kind of had at one time, I don't know if I still do or not, this theory about Court and Spark that the whole record kind of builds up to this breakdown in Car on a Hill. And it comes in that weird vocal section where you hear the distortion. But that's kind of the peak. That's and then and it kind of flattens out and then goes into full-blown depression in the next few songs.
Right.
That's I don't know if there's anything to that or not. And to me, it's like an ocean wave. It breaks right there and then washes away into whatever.
That is the ocean wave breaking right there. I listen to that middle section over and over. Like I just rewind, because it just moves me, and I can't. It blows my mind. Like I love Banquet, but then she went from Banquet to Car on a Hill. It's just one album difference. The amount of growth, all of it's brilliant, but just the amount of growth here is just it's unmatched, really. I can think of few artists that have grown. And she continues to for we have many more months to talk about these albums.
Yeah, this is the heart of her incredible run in the 70s.
Yeah.
But I think even with this album, you can see the natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
Every album seems like almost like a logical step or a logical step up in sophistication, and then Hissing of Summer Lawns comes along. Completely out of left field, I think.
Yeah.
That's where she really took a left turn. And one of the things that really impresses the hell out of me is here she has her biggest commercial success of her life. And she basically gives a big, up yours by not staying in that vein and coming up with Hissing of Summer Lawns.
Yeah. I think that's why, she still talked about and looked at it I think those risks, like after Blue, she did For the Roses, then Court and Spark, then Hissing. And those risks are what, kept her relevant till now. Those, they were huge risks. Did anyone cover Car on a Hill?
Yeah, there's 8 covers of Car on a Hill.
Jackson
the first
Brown
one was 1998 from Lionheart. And it was a prog rock version, which is not the first prog rock version of a Court and Spark song. Also recorded from Jordan Trotter in a country version. I don't think Jordan Trotter really got the gist of the song, but gave Joni a little coinage.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot of covers of the song, and there's like 1 year. 4 covers came out in the same year. I'm like, holy shit, here they come. Bam, 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 bam. I don't get that, but there they are.
Did any of the covers try to tackle that middle section, or did they not even touch it?
They all do. I mean, but in different ways, mostly simplified.
Right.
Do they change
Nobody
do they change the sex? To be appropriate. If they're male, suddenly it's she's a real good talker. I think she's a friend.
I don't think anybody changes the sex of that. But I didn't spin them all today.
Because only men can be assholes like that. All right. Down to you. Are we even worthy of talking about this song?
No, we're not worthy of this song.
We're not worthy of this.
On.
Yeah, let's move on.
This whole album is just one right after the other, man.
Body blows.
It's crazy.
I mean, there hasn't been a miss yet. Chris, did you want to share a version of this before we talk about it?
Yes, I do. I'm not going to play it tonight, but I am going to do my best to call up a version. One of my biggest non-professional situations I ever found myself in was accompanying Robin Adler at one of our Joni fests to accompany her singing this song, and it was a great honor, and I think she did a beautiful work on the vocal, and I thank God I was able that day to keep up with her. I lost it a couple of times during rehearsal. Thank God. She was so patient. She was so good to me. I can't tell you.
She's awesome.
So I'm going to try. I tried to do a test with Jeremy earlier, and it was a disaster. But it'll be still better than the train wreck that was my performance at the last set. So anyway, I'm just going to hit play, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Jeremy, please, if I need to raise or lower the volume, please.
Let me pause it for a second so we can do a sound check, so there's no pressure.
Oh yeah, sure. Right. So here is Down to You.
Everything comes and goes, marked by lovers and styles of clothes. Things that you held high and told yourself were true, lost or changing as the days come down to you, down to you. Constant stranger, you're a kind person, you're a cold person too. It's down to you. Go down to the pickup station, craving warmth and beauty. You settle for less than fascination. A few drinks later, you're not so choosy. When the chosen might strip off the shadows of the strange new flesh you found, clutching at night till like a fig leaf, you hurry to the blackness and the blankets to lay down an impression, and you're alone. In the morning there are lovers in the street. They look so high. You brush against a stranger and you both apologize. Old friends seem indifferent. You must have brought that on. Old bonds have broken down. Love is gone. Ooh, love is gone. Written on your spirit, this sad song. Love is gone. Everything comes and goes. Pleasure moves on too early and trouble moves too slow. Just when you're thinking you finally got it made, bad news comes knocking at your garden gate, knocking for you. Constant stranger, you're a brute, you're an angel, you can crawl, you can fly too. It's down to you. It all comes down to you.
Beautiful.
That was exquisite.
Amazing.
It was a really great time. And, you know, what was really special for me while I was playing that was when I heard the rest of the room sort of adding those harmonies for those couple of lines, you know,
Yeah.
and at the very end, just, you know, they couldn't stop themselves. And it was the Lookout Mountain boys and girls. And it was, but it was so beautiful. And everybody just gave what they needed to and then pulled back and let Robin take it again. And it was a beautiful moment. It was, you know, and the song, of course, is, it is phenomenal. Let's talk about the song now because that's the star here.
Was that in England?
It was. Yes, that was a great day. It was a great day.
Shout out and love to Robin. We hope she's with us next time.
Yeah. That was a great night. I was there for that.
Wow. Even I love hearing you all play these songs because, you know, we don't have Joni playing them live right now. So to hear them and to have the songs come back to life in real time, it's just.
Bob, did she ever perform this live?
She did. Yeah, of course she did. I have to dig in the archive to see where it is, but I'm sure she did.
Wow, she won a Grammy though. That for that arrangement for the, you know, for
right,
for the, I guess the orchestral arrangement, because I mean she had to have given them some kind of information or notes or something.
Best arrangement with vocal.
Yes, and by the way, I have to call Dave Blackburn out for charting that out the way he did. The version in the songbook doesn't have any of it. Nobody had charted it out before Dave did it, and I think he did a beautiful job with it.
Yeah. Well, can we give a quick shout out to the damn clavinet in the song? Like, that's the strangest,
brother.
That's the strangest use of a clavinet. Like, we're used to hearing like Stevie Wonder. You know what I mean? So when I read the liner notes before I got home with the album when I bought it, I'm like, oh, there's a clavinet on this song. Then I heard that, I'm like, shit, it's awesome. Like,
which piece, where does it come in? Is that the sad thing that sounds like an oboe?
No, it's that.
I'm the least musical. I am not a musician.
So clavinet's usually a funk synthesizer keyboard instrument.
Okay.
And the way it's used in Down to You is just this coloring in the music. And when I heard your live version, I totally was hearing the clavinet parts. It's just
sorry, I couldn't add
Reuben,
that.
Reuben,
that's what I'm gonna do.
Probably when it's like he goes to the pickup station and you hear the.
Oh, okay.
Probably clavinetish.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought you said clarinet. That one little clarinet solo.
Oh, the clarinet's awesome too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We have a musical group in Chicago called Great Moments in Vinyl, and every month or couple of months they'll pick an album, and they pick this album to do, and they had a great horn and reed section, and the clarinet that they did during this playing of this song, man, it put tears in my eyes. It's such a short little, like 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds at the most, but it just, man, it kills me every time I hear it.
Yeah. As a musician, like I never really do cover versions, but I always wonder, like, where would my place be at Joni Fest? And I finally figured out I'm going to add the clavinet to Down to You. Just the couple notes. That's going to be my contribution.
Bring it, yes.
Bring it on.
We have a lot of people who play their own music at Joni Fest.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sure.
an homage of the songwriting.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, because we really are the descendants. Like I wouldn't be shit without. Because when I was a kid, I would write these shitty pop songs, and I started writing shitty personal songs. But at least Joni got me writing shitty personal songs.
I hope to write a song someday before I pass. Yes.
And we're gonna listen to it on this podcast. You have until Shine to write original material.
But it won't be as good as this one.
You're probably right about that. Well, you're definitely right about that. This one doesn't get much better. It really doesn't.
I don't even know where to begin talking about Down to You. I mean, every line, we could talk about every line in the song and how amazing it is. It's just,
yeah. People talk.
It's my second favorite Joni song of all time after Hijira, which is my eternal number one song of all time from anyone. Down to You is my number 2 song from her, and it is just, words don't even describe how good this song is.
Do you have a number 3?
You and Meryl Streep.
I really don't.
For Hijira.
Not yet. I'll think about that.
That's Meryl Streep's favorite song of all songs. Hijira.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow.
That one's hard to argue with.
Yeah, that album discussion, I'm starting to mentally prepare for it now because it's going to be.
Yeah, that's gonna be killer.
We have to start at noon.
Yeah.
We have to start at noon, Jeremy.
We might have to start at like 7:30 just so we can. Oh boy, Down to You. Okay, I'm not worthy of even talking about it. So if anyone else wants to.
Yeah, so people talk about a song taking them to church. To me, this song takes me to church. It's I don't know. It's a spiritual experience.
That Grammy was damn well deserved. I will say that.
All right. Did anybody ever talk about or sing about or write about a one night stand like this ever?
The morning after.
Not that I know of, and boy, did she catch
the walk of shame before it was even named. I mean, this is so definitional of how generations were seeing themselves, and she'd probably go on to talk about how some of this was formed by churches and and more morals and that kind of stuff, but this was just the raw experience of it, and boy, could we all empathize with it.
And when you leave that house on the walk of shame, there's these damn lovers on the street looking so high, and you're just walking by them with your head down.
Yeah.
You brush against them and you apologize.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you pull the night to you like a fig leaf, which is biblical, as if I'm getting ready to sin.
lay down an impression in your loneliness.
And it's
that was one thing, at least in that version I just played for you, that I really, there's something about, I really wanted to somehow let the piano speak to that complete sense of vacuousness, of just emptiness. And I hope I was at least this much successful with it, because that was just, to me, is probably that's the come to Jesus moment in the song for me, anyway.
And the panting to lay an impression. and your loneliness.
It's so mechanical. The way she musically describes mechanical sex that is just empty.
And so relatable at the same time. That's what's fascinating about it.
It's funny because I still have a hard time imagining 1974 Joni Mitchell at a pickup bar.
Richard was there. That's the last time. That's where she saw Richard.
Yeah.
And it foreshadows that.
You just call out people. They have takeout when you're you have delivery when you're that famous. You know.
I don't think this song is personal. I think it's a portrait song.
Do you?
You think it's a what?
I think it's a portrait song.
Yeah,
it's about her.
I agree. I think this could easily be the flip side of Free Man in Paris.
Yeah,
this could easily.
Yeah.
As a gay man, sounds like somebody that's been through the experience, though. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
You go down to the pickup station, craving warmth and beauty. You settle for less than fascination. A few drinks later, you're not so choosy.
And the closing lights strip off the shadows of the strange new flesh around. Because you
free to the blackness and the blankets to lay down an impression. Oh my God!
This is hitting a little too close to home.
Horrible.
Yeah, for me
on
too.
To the next song.
Jeremy, for me too. Believe me.
Oh shit!
But Bob, this is not the first one night stand she writes about. She hits it again in Coyote. She hits it again in on Mingus dance. Sweet Sucker Dance. Yeah.
No, it was her first one. Eastern Rain.
Right.
Awesome one night stand in that one. And that she wrote that in 1967.
But the same conclusion. So all alone.
We're not going to count Wild Things Run Fast in her pickup songs.
Oh, that's definitely a good one. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I also like how it sort of is a premonition for Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. You can crawl, you can fly too.
Yeah.
Starting to talk about the various dualities and what have you.
As we settle behind the 8 ball, as we rock between the sheets.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh, this shit's the best thing ever. This song takes my breath away.
Me too.
Alicia.
So I know everybody's talking about the middle of the song, and that is very important. But the line, for me, I like the 2 verses at the end. I think those are fantastic as well. The time, everything comes and goes, marked by lovers and styles of clothes. To me, she's discussing time. And the same thing at the bottom. You finally got it made. Bad news comes knocking at your garden gate, knocking for you, constant stranger. You're a brute, you're an angel. You can crawl, you can fly too. I think that's so incredible. She's been able to put time and how things change in such specific words.
And how you
that's a good point, Alicia. And there's 2 songs that give that to me. This is one of them. Time comes back in your garden gate. The other one's a Lowell George song where he says, "Don't it always seem to hit you right when you think you can lay back easy?" Same message, different words, but exact same message. 2 great songwriters.
There's a lot more to this song than just that one night stand. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I can sadly relate to the line. Pleasure moves on too early and trouble leaves too slow.
Yeah.
There's
Son of a bitch.
There's a restaurant in West Hollywood that has a whole set of Joni Mitchell themed cocktails, and one of them is called Trouble Leaves Too Slow. It's made with slow gin.
Wow.
That's brilliant. Maybe that's what they're drinking at the pickup bar. Pickup station.
I just picking up on that what Alicia just said. This everything changes, and so it's down to you. You know,
You're the only
I'm
constant.
the constant stranger. I'm in AA, and it's a very 12-steppy kind of, you know, the world will change, or the world will change. You know, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And this is going to pass too. And the next thing's going to pass. So, where are you?
I read at the end of this whole thing. I read it so it communicates in a way that tells me that I am the constant stranger to myself. That we are all constant strangers
And
to ourselves.
stranger. I mean, what a great phrase there. You know, constant.
Yeah. Oh, let's think back. I'm as constant as a northern star. I mean, there's a thread weaving its way through some of the kind of, you know, introspective, lonely moments that she describes, and those words, you said it, Alicia. She chooses them very carefully. I think she wants to recall thoughts and feelings she's elicited before as a way of helping us provide context to what she's saying here. And so I'm happy to build I'm happy to build the house of cards and not watch it fall down. It's great. It's just great to be a part of it.
Who has covered this song?
Brandy Carlisle did it at the Joni party, for Joni's party. But the first cover was in 1976. It was a prog rock version from Coliseum 2, featuring Roddy Montrose on guitar. I love it myself, but most Joni purists will not. Mark Scott certainly will not. But
who's shaking your head?
But let's face it, the song's very complex. So if you have a choice between doing both sides now, or Circle Game, or Down to You, you're not going to go Down to You.
Right.
You know, you're going to go easy. So the song is not covered by many people. Maybe there's a small handful of folks that get it.
Here we are.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any thoughts on Down to You before we move on?
What got me on the Joni 75 was not so much Brandy as the musicians. The way they didn't have strings on the stage, but they captured that arrangement there in the bridge or whatever it is, the instrumental interlude, so beautifully in that. At least in the film they did. I wasn't at the concert itself, but
the woodwinds did a very nice job.
Yeah,
you know,
it's beautiful. Even Brandy, I think, said she kind of blew it.
I wonder if Tom Scott was involved with that.
There. Was he there? He was there, wasn't he?
He was there, but I wonder if he was involved with the arrangement of
I don't think so.
It was John Coward was the guy who played the piano.
Yeah, and
Brian Blade's band.
Brian Blade, yeah. And John Coward.
Great.
When did Wayne Shorter come along? Which album?
Oh God.
Well,
he was everywhere.
Don Juan. He was definitely there at Don Juan.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he showed up at Don Juan.
So Don Juan, yeah. Okay.
Chris is right. And so I'll call Down to You, Joni Symphony No. 2. Symphony No. 1 was Judgment of the Moon and Stars. Symphony No. 2 is Down to You. And Symphony 3, we will get to later.
Is it 15 minutes long?
It's 16 and a half.
16 and a half, okay. All right. So next we move on to Just Like This Train, which I will say it was never one of my favorites. Sometimes I found it a little annoying, but when I listened to it the last couple of days, I liked it more. And I revisited her 90 when she started doing it live in the mid 90s. I was surprised because I'm like, I saw she did it before I heard it, and I'm like, is she gonna pull this off? Because she had the turbulent indigo voice, and
she loves performing this song.
Yeah, she says it's like an old overcoat that she likes to go to.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Playing it.
So what do y'all think of the song?
This is the song on the record that most points to Ellington for me.
Okay.
It's just all, and it's in her guitar arrangement. Is really, it's a very orchestral guitar arrangement, and I think she didn't get enough credit for it back in the day, which is why she pulled it back out and out and out and out and out and again and again.
And I think in terms of painting pictures, this is one of her best. I don't know, just sketches everywhere in this thing, Old man sleeping on his bags, women with that teased up kind of hair, kids with the jitters in their legs, and those wide open stares, and the kids got cokes, and I could go on and on.
Yeah, but we go get a Coke and a chocolate bar after this podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
the hairline recede.
But it's definitely very, very picturesque. You're exactly right.
Yeah. I always wanted a fold-up sink. I've been looking for a fold-up sink since.
I think I saw one in a movie somewhere because I always wondered about that too, and I think I saw one somewhere.
I saw one on a train one time, and that's the first thing I thought of. Oh my gosh!
They probably figured out that there's, it's unsanitary, and they probably had to remove them all because, there was mold, black mold or something growing in them.
So I wonder if her vain darling did indeed end up having his hairline recede.
Yes, it was James Taylor. His hairline receded the hell out of his hairline.
Watching his hairline recede while they're rocking away in a sleeping car.
Bob, are you going on record with that?
I'll go on record with that. Yeah, sure.
All right. I mean, I'm happy to go run with it too.
My vain darling. I mean, she and JT have been soulmates for a long, long time. I mean, he's always loved her. She never stopped loving him, really. But they realized they couldn't do anything together. So when she says, "Watching your hairline recede, my vain darling," yeah, it's all about James Taylor.
He was busy recording Mockingbird at that time.
Yeah.
Were you all, Alicia and Jeremy, were you talking about Stevie Nicks earlier? You've mentioned Stevie several times. Are you going through Stevie's albums too?
Yep.
Yes.
And I love Stevie Nicks, and this is a good example. And I'm not in any way pitting Joni against Stevie or anything like that, but sure. I feel like Joni has, in a lot of these songs, has almost too much that she's packing into these. They're so full, and Stevie's the opposite. I feel like she's got these great cores that sometimes don't develop fully. So she's got these great songs that I'm like, but where's the rest? Where's the next verse? Where's the rest of it? And Joni never leaves me hanging like that. I think that's one reason I find her music so satisfying. And that's not in any way a criticism of Stevie Nicks. It's just that's I've noticed that over and over with her.
Well, that's one of the criticisms we've been kind of discussing in the Stevie group is Stevie's productivity with her writing has been up and down, and
yeah.
So
we love what's there, but sometimes there's a lot that's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send me those emails too, Jeremy. I want to send it with those.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, we're doing Stevie Nicks, Joni Mitchell, Madonna, and Prince.
I only got her first 2 solo albums, I have to admit, and then
I wouldn't mind joining a Prince discussion.
Oh yeah. All right, so
go ahead.
I have no. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love that she pulled this out in the 90s too and played it a lot. I remember she did this one on Letterman. I know she did it on Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, she did it on Letterman.
She did it on Jay
some
Leno.
really high profile shows with this song.
CBS This Morning, Jay Leno, and I can't remember what else. I think there might have been one other.
95 appearances, every 98 show she did, she played it.
And great. I thought that those 90s versions were great. I
You guys
did.
ever
I did
seen
too.
Much Music from Canada show?
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Much
that
Music,
put
yeah.
online. That
Yeah,
was great.
she had this whole set of songs that she did that were not transcribed yet. And I would look at these videos constantly, like Moon at the Window.
Oh,
I was like, oh my God, she's playing Moon at the Window.
and great. It was like a great version.
It was amazing. And
Mhm.
then she was writing songs, like she did a very pared down version of Crazy Cries of Love that
Mhm.
wasn't recorded for another couple of years.
Wasn't it
Yeah.
called Love Cries then?
Loves Christ.
Yes,
Yeah.
Love Cries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
First heard that on the Wells Fargo Theater.
Mhm.
Yes, that was
show.
a great show too.
Don't you miss
Yeah,
those
yeah.
days
Oh
when
my
there was
God, yeah.
a new album on the horizon?
I remember taping that Wells Fargo show on a cassette tape.
Yeah.
Me
With
too.
the-
I did
sure
the same
still have
thing.
it
Off the
somewhere.
radio,
The
yeah.
same thing.
From the
Guilty
radio.
as charged.
My friend,
I love her conversations in between too, are just so good.
Mm.
Mhm.
The stories that she tells. She's a great storyteller.
my beloved best friend that totally ripped apart Madonna's erotica, also does not like Joni Mitchell at all. And I remember I recorded a live version of Borderline, and Anne would always be like, strung tight, strung tense. Like, so I love you, Anne. We're gonna keep you off the Joni discussions, I think. But yeah, those 90s, I think, were a magical time for all of us, because by that time, I was in.
Borderline is one of the highest evolved pieces of writing she turned out. I adore how that song is done.
Love.
Sorry, I just have to say that on Borderline. Love Borderline.
It's so funny that one, and we're on the wrong album, I guess, but that one is one that I totally skipped for years for some reason.
Really?
Oh,
And then
God.
probably 5 years ago, I was listening to the album and I was like, holy shit. I just never, it took that long to punch me. I don't know why.
Well,
This
it's
is
so
great
applicable
song.
Well,
today.
it's really relevant now.
Absolutely.
Shit, yeah.
Every
It's
mean
the
streets
one
kick
song she
ass.
hasn't gone with Madonna.
Yeah, Borderline.
Borderline.
I love them both too. I don't think I could pick one. All right, let's. I'll get us back on Court and Spark because shit. If you get me going on Turbulent Indigo, I'm gonna keep going. Just like this.
So just like this train.
Is
Just
that
like this
next
train.
year sometime?
7 covers,
Jeremy?
Jeremy. 7 covers of Just Like This Train.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. 7 covers.
7 covers.
The first one was 1977, an acoustic version from John Lehman Haupt. And not a lot of versions of this song.
It's really clever how she emulates a train sound though with the riffs and stuff. It's just a clever piece of music. All right. Any thoughts on Just Like This Train? I've grown to love it. I have grown to love it.
I think it's a great palate cleanser after Down to You.
I feel like it's a palate cleanser after the first whole set of songs.
That's
Honestly,
good point. That's a good point. She did need to lighten it up a little bit. Yes, absolutely.
because I feel like it's one heavy hitter after another, all the way through to Down to You. Then this is the first exhale. Like, All right. So the first time I heard "Raised on Robbery," I'm like, "What the hell is this?" But I do love it now. I'm gonna let someone else start this one off.
So Joni loved Chuck Berry and dance songs, and I think this song was her Chuck Berry rock and roll tribute song. And it's a totally portrait song. It's a song about a hooker trying to pick up a guy in a bar. So she's nowhere in the song. So this will definitely lead us to the hissing songs where she's nowhere to be found, but she's writing portrait songs. And it's just a great rock and roll song.
And her vision for it is I'm going to use the phrase that's probably going to cause me trouble, but her vision for it was balls out. It was she didn't hold back anything on this. I mean, Sue, you talked about earlier about the intro for the song being something that would really, and certainly it was a radio hook to the point where people didn't even concentrate on what the story was. because that might have, gotten it yanked. It was just so, such a great melody, and the guitar arrangements were so compelling to listen through. It was fun. It was just fun.
Joni wasn't the only one with the balls out, because I think the character in the song was a. And let's mention we do have a clavinet back in the intro of the song.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely from its time. It was it was that rock and roll, like Sue said. It's Andrew's Sisters to a certain degree. The Boogie Woogie Beat Boy thing.
Yeah. JoniMitchell.com informs me that the Biscayne first model year was actually 58. So he couldn't have bought a 57 Biscayne.
Oh, wow.
Funny.
Really?
I just learned that on my laptop here.
Now, is that true for Canada?
Yes. I assert. Not even bother to look at it again.
Now she did
being born in 57, there's 2 Joni songs that mention my birth year, Raised on Robbery and
Coming from the Cold.
Coming from the Cold.
Yeah, Coming from the Cold.
Oh, that's such a good fucking song. Okay. Raised on Robbery, doesn't she do this on Shadows and Light? Or no?
Not on the actual release, but yeah, she did it
on the VHS, right?
The tour.
She does it on the video, I believe. But not on the record.
Because remember Jocko's I liked that version. And once again, I didn't really care for that 1983 version. We always go back to the 83 version. Yeah.
Because on the video, she talks through kind of the first part of it. Sitting in the lounge, muttering and smoking to himself and something like that.
Yeah,
I remember
that's
from the 83 video, like she'd be talking, then it would show the drummer like do a thing and it would light him up. I'm like, fast forward.
I just wonder where the hell she ever thought up that subject matter. How did she? What prompted that?
It was Myrtle. No, I'm just kidding.
I think in many an Empire Hotel.
It was one too many trips through the lobby at the Bessboro.
Yeah. Myrtle, if you heard me, I didn't mean that. I was joking. This isn't about.
No, Myrtle's dead. She won't hear that.
Yeah.
Hears everything.
Yeah, she hears everything. Thank you very much.
Oh, we're still on the air. Oh, have I got my boot in my mouth?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this isn't the deepest song. It's a fun little boogie.
God bless Robbie Robertson.
Yeah.
I mean, he really brought it to this one.
And
it's only 2 minutes and 20 seconds long.
What did you all think? Like when you bought this album when it came out, we're used to the dulcimer. Blah, 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 blah. What did you think when you heard "Raised on Robbery" the first time? Were you surprised?
More, please. More.
I haven't heard the dulcimer yet.
She would play she had these little songs she wrote when she was in the cafes. She called them Bo Diddley songs.
The doctor, was it the doctor?
Dr. Junk.
Dr. Junk.
And Mr. Blue and
which is not about David Blue at all.
No. And what was the other one? Brandy Eyes. They were all kind of rock and roll tunes that she would break up her set with.
Lisa, what do you think of this one? I'm curious.
First time I heard it, I was surprised to hear the cussing, just because all the other songs, she never had that.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I was just like, okay. But it's not maybe my favorite song off of this record, but it has a nice groove. It's a good song. It's probably on the lower end of the songs if I had to put them in order.
Right.
But it's a nice song. So
I feel like the album has kind of entered into a different section. You know what I mean? Like there's so many heavy hitters with such emotional weight for me. Just like This Train's pleasant. This one's as she says in Sounds Right, she's gonna rock and roll us now.
I remember being in the back seat of my parents' car once, and my folks were in the front, and I was singing this song, and I go, "I'm a pretty good cook. I'm sitting on my grocer," and my mother goes, "What kind of a song is that?" I know it's just a song, Mom. I didn't even know.
She doesn't want a full-length mink, though.
It was funny how back in the day, I mean, you don't understand, anything goes now, but in 74, you couldn't really sing a song about a hooker trying to pick up a guy and saying she was, a great lay. So you got to say, I'm a pretty good cook. I'm sitting my groceries, coming out to my kitchen. I'll show you my best recipe. It was very, very disguised in its time.
Oh, gosh. I love it. How many people covered this one?
32. A lot of covers of this song. It's a nice rock and roll song. First covered in 74 from Sarah Smith. I'm not sure she's a real person, but this was an 8-track. Talked about 8 tracks earlier. Sarah Smith, it was an 8-track that you could have bought at truck stops in 74 with Joni Mitchell's greatest hits, and this would have been on there from Sarah Smith.
They were all Joni Mitchell's? All Joni Mitchell songs?
Jeremy, your buddy Sheena Easton did this song on a live DVD. Yeah. So.
I have to check that one out.
I gotta say, just as a side, I love your cover list that you, Bob. You have found some of the craziest stuff. You posted a one recently with Marianne Faithfull covering Amelia live. It was
oh my God, she did? How was it?
She did. You should listen. I'll see if I can find it. But
I love Marianne Faithfull.
Me too.
Yeah.
And
it was a live cover. It's not really great quality, but she did it.
Yeah.
Did she do it justice?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan, so I had no judgment.
Recently, somebody posted on the Joni Mitchell Facebook page a video of Marianne Faithfull and David
Bowie
singing.
Oh, I got you, babe.
I got you, babe.
She's dressed as a nun.
Oh,
It was fabulous.
It was great. It was really good. And wait, no, but she was dressed like a nun. She had like a habit and some weird headdress on.
Yeah, and he had like a feather halter on,
It was crazy.
I'm threatening the world that there will be a Marianne Faithfull Phonogenics series after, we get through all these other artists. So maybe like 10 years from now, but there's so many Marianne Faithfull albums that I love.
Yeah, there are.
All right. Trouble Child. Another character sketch, I guess. That's... these last 3 songs, 4, I like them, but there's just so much emotional weight in the first part of the album that, it kind of turns a corner. I like all these songs. I love these songs, but they're just different.
Why do you think it's a character sketch and not autobiographical?
What's that?
Why do you think it's a character sketch and not...
So you think she's talking about herself in Trouble Child?
She was.
Okay. Maybe I read it wrong all these damn years.
I don't know.
was she ever checked in someplace where she underwent this kind of treatment?
If you believe the book.
Oh, I know nothing about this, and I hesitate to suggest this because it really is so outside my experience. But I always thought it might be about an abortion, about a troubled child. And they open and close you and talk like they know you and they don't know you.
Okay, that changes everything.
Huh.
And like I say, I know about as much about abortions as, nothing. I really, still.
Even a hint of this song being about Joni herself going through the most. If this song is I just always kind of wrote it off as about some kid in the hospital, and I just didn't care. I liked the song, but I didn't care about much. But to look at it from, that's why I love these discussions. To look at it from a personal journey really changes it for me. It makes it almost like the most personal song on the album instead of the least. Shit. Okay.
Who of this group was anyone else up at the Mendel exhibit in Saskatoon? So David, do you recall seeing there was a section of that exhibit that was a lot of her either they were wash or they were the marker drawings, but they weren't the ones we've seen in some of the songbooks. I seem to remember that the wall explanations explained some period that discussed Joni being in a hospital for what they described as some type of physical problem, and it was in the early 70s at some point. I would be very surprised if I would like have dreamt this, but because
She had abscessed ovaries.
Very real.
And she said she did a series of paintings. I forget what they were called, but she was sick for a long, long time.
Thank you, Mark. Then maybe there is something to that. But
it was before Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, because
right.
She got up finally and went to the piano and started to play, and that became Pepper's Plains. At least that's what I remember.
Yeah, she had to cancel a portion of the tour in '76, I think. She was sick. Isn't that true, Bob?
Well, the cancellation was due to the fact that John Guerin, her boyfriend, was sleeping with every girl on the road, and so she ended that tour really quickly.
I thought it was because she was sick.
Sick of him. Sick of John.
Because John
was a little later. She had
asshole.
I believe she had abscessed ovaries, and she was sick for a long time. And she said doctors wanted to take out some things that I thought they shouldn't, or something like that. But I've got the Mendel catalog. I wasn't there, but Ashara was kind enough to buy several of them for some of us, and we paid her for them. But so I managed to get one of those.
I have it too. I haven't gone back to look through it. It's like it's one of those things that I can never crack the Bible.
The delirium paintings is what she called them. She says she did when she was in the hospital. The doctors wanted to take these things out of her, and she kind of rebelled, and she brought in all these paints and painted some paintings. And
got it.
Some she called the delirium paintings.
Thank you. So so I did read it. At least I understood. I really tried to read everything in that exhibit. I tried very hard to concentrate on the art because there was so much to see. It was so much to see. It's so much breadth of work. It was wonderful, just wonderful.
So I feel like a total idiot. Am I the only one on this whole podcast that didn't feel the song was about Joni Mitchell? That she was writing about.
I didn't.
I didn't.
You didn't? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I never did think it was about her. For some reason, I thought it was about David Crosby because she was talking about a lion. You know, she referred to him as a Leo or whatever, you know. And
where's the lion in you to defy what?
So
the boulder's like a mama
he was a
lion.
drug addict, you know, and could have landed in a rehab or something. I guess that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a rehab. You know? Not like, you know. But then I read in one of the biographies about her depression and that she attempted suicide and she could have ended up in a hospital. So I'm not really sure. I mean, you know, the things that they say in these biographies have like kind of a third, you know, person type.
Right.
You know, it's somebody. It's not Joni telling the story.
So you never know.
It's like somebody who was her friend. Yeah. So so after that, I was like, wow, maybe it's first person going through like a mental breakdown.
And that's like the Little Green syndrome to me, because that's a song before I knew what it was about. I'm like, But if Troubled Child is about her in the mental hospital, holy shit.
Yeah. Or it might have been like just her talking about therapy too, because she went through therapy too.
And she said about Twisted that she felt like she earned the right to. She felt like she earned the right to cover Twisted because of her experience with the mental health profession.
That's
Well,
what
I heard her.
I might have made up, but I don't think so.
In
I read that
74,
she went through analysis, but I don't.
Yeah, that might.
Never seeing anything about her being hospitalized or in any kind of institution.
That was inferred, I guess. I have to look back if it was either in Reckless Daughter or in Girls Like Us. Or
Well, I still haven't read Reckless
Gosh,
Daughter.
it's just so easy for us to believe that artists are, suffering fragile creatures who will, find themselves in hospitals and it's the
Right.
it's the Van Gogh thing. You know what I mean? I don't think we've, ever really let go of that. And frankly, she tried to teach us better about it and just said, you know what? He was pretty fierce. He'd piss in their fireplace.
right.
You know?
What do we know about living in turbulent indigo?
Right. So I mean,
Yeah.
so she might have struggled with it, but I don't know that she would write first person from the point of view of somebody who's been institutionalized.
Right.
I was always kind of interested, and I may be reading more into this than there's there, but I always thought it was interesting that the title is Trouble Child and not Troubled.
Hmm.
Yeah, like you're always getting into trouble. Like it's your fault you're there or something.
She's a chore on she or he is a chore on somebody else.
Right.
Right.
They are
You're the
causing
trouble child.
they're causing somebody else difficulty rather than they are in fact disturbed.
It took me a long time to put that together, but yeah.
This is another song if you listen on the headphones, the panning of the electric piano and the sax is great. It's so good. And then of course we get back to Malibu, the breaking the waves of Malibu. So we're back in California.
Album cover.
Yep.
I'm trying to Google it. I can't find it. Somewhere I read a long time ago that when Slash was a teenager, he had lived with her for a little while when he got kicked out of his house, and somehow I made the connection between Trouble Child and that situation, but I might have made that up. I don't know. I gotta look more. But
the rumors are gonna start here. Trouble Child is about Slash.
I don't mean to start a rumor.
Yep, that's made up.
All right, how many people covered this one?
8. It's not the Joni song you go to cover. It's not a casual cover.
It's a strange piece of music. I don't know. Strange
Yeah,
is the
not
right
a
word,
fun
but
cover. I mean,
She
first cover,
pulled this one out in the 90s too.
did she?
Yeah, she did. She pulled a couple. She was a couple of television shows that I think she played Trouble Child on. Strangely,
Yeah, and G. It's a really great song to play. It's pretty it's like her classic chord shapes.
Sorry, Bob. I didn't mean to interrupt your the discussion on the.
No big deal. I mean, Freddie White was the first one to do it, but nobody really significant covers, so it's a non-essential topic.
Was her playing style a little similar to Cold Blue Steel with some of the? Okay, just different production. All right, we are how many hours in? I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat. I'm starting to get hungry. But we have one more song to talk about. We start off with the most beautiful piano of Court and Spark, the hit single Help Me, and we end up with Cheech and Chong. We end up with Damned. Oh, Alicia, I'm always curious of your opinion. What do you think of Trouble Child before we move on?
It's really interesting because I agree with your comment you said probably 30 minutes ago. The first 7 songs are like serious, but I also would say those are probably the best. And then here, excuse me, I'm not eating crackers. But the last couple are kind of like the breathers, and they're kind of my least favorite. And then you have Twisted, which I absolutely love.
Yeah. So was this the first cover of Joni's proper cover?
Yes, it was. Of course,
Yep.
it was.
And hell yeah, like okay, I'll take it. Do we all love Twisted? Is there anyone here that doesn't like Twisted? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
That's probably my least favorite track on the album.
Okay.
I have heard that there's at least, and I forget who said it, but it was somebody fairly well regarded in the music industry. I don't know if it was another performer or what, was reviewing the record, and he said he didn't think it belonged. That its inclusion actually kept it from being a perfect record.
I think I remember reading a review like
I'm
that.
trying to remember who said it now, and it's bugging me that I can't remember who said it. Darn it.
Well, first
But it
of
was,
all,
it was a
she
great
has
part.
said, sorry. She has said that Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross were like the Beatles to her when she at a certain age. So
That's
this
true.
is kind of her first homage to them. Annie Ross wrote lyrics to a Wardell Gray saxophone solo, and it became Twisted.
She'll hit them
And,
again for she'll hit
and it's
them
kind
again
of the
for
flip side of Trouble Child.
Centerpiece coming up.
It takes it lightly instead of seriously.
This definitely signifies where she's gonna be going with the jazz. Something that just came to me, this is from like 4 songs ago, but did you guys ever notice in Just Like This Train, her background vocals are mixed so much higher than the lead vocals? Like, Station Master Shuffling. Like, when you go back to the album, just listen to that and then keep it in mind. Okay, back to Twisted.
You're right. It's more like almost more of a duet than backing vocals.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right. In fact, it wasn't until she started doing it solo that I realized that I was probably not following what was the real melody line.
And sorry to jump back a few songs, but when I re-listened to the album, it really stuck out to me. I'm like, oh wow, I never noticed that before. So as a discussion panel, let's take a vote. Do you all feel like Twisted does or does not fit the album? I say fits. I like it.
I say fits.
Yeah.
I'm not going to second guess Joni.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell never lies. Janet Jackson said so.
Well, one of the things I like about it is, to me, almost it's like, even though she didn't write it, it's almost like her most personal. You know,
Yeah.
I think that she believes she was a genius at 3. You know,
oh yeah, she sure does.
You know, there's so much of this where it's like, man, this is her.
Well, and she reintroduced the song to a new wave of artists who had not heard it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there are Joni tribute albums that have Twisted on it.
Yeah.
So
It's every one of those
not
cases.
Joni's song, but she made it her own.
Yeah, she sure did.
She sings, "I got into the vodka one night." And I believe the original lyric was, "I drank a fifth of vodka one night."
Yes.
At 3 years old. I mean, this was Annie Ross just writing a crazy lyric to this saxophone solo, but there's a little difference between getting into the vodka and drinking a whole fifth.
I gotta say, like, you know, much like life, we all deal with some really heavy shit the first 7 songs. Go through some really dark moments the first 7 songs. And at the end of the day, what the hell can you do but just laugh?
Yeah.
So that's why Twisted works for me. At the end of the day, 2 heads are better than 1.
Well, see, that's what I think after Carve
That dude is
on a
crazy.
hill,
Flip-
she's depressed.
Flip City.
Yeah, Flip.
I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
So I get annoyed, like not really annoyed, but I get a little annoyed when people cover Twisted at a Joni tribute.
Yeah.
And I was at the San Francisco Jazz tribute to Joni when she was supposed to get that big award, but like 3 weeks before that, she had her brain aneurysm.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Jackson sang Twisted. He played it on piano. And it
Wow.
was like, I couldn't believe Joe Jackson was there. I kind of like him, you know, and why couldn't you pick one of her songs?
Yeah.
Who, by the way, Joe Jackson delivered a terrific "Down to You" at the Joni's Jazz 1999.
Oh, really?
Why would he have not pulled that one out?
Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed because he got such a great voice. I mean, I wanted to hear him play some. And the other song he played was Big Yellow Taxi.
Oh,
what the hell, man?
That's called phoning it in.
I mean, he should have definitely played one of her beautiful piano songs. I mean, yeah.
Or Ladies Man.
I just had to get that out. Sorry.
Wow. Yeah.
But I like Twisted.
I think it's a funny end to the album. And I will say this and Centerpiece got me into Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross because I found them both intriguing, listened to a lot of their older stuff, and then that led me to Robert Altman because Annie Ross was in Shortcuts in the 90s. And so I started going back and watching all the old Robert
Talk
Altman
about a
stuff.
dark movie, boy.
It was great. I loved Shortcuts, but
Shortcuts is great.
It
4 hours to watch a movie.
Yeah, but I don't know. Those two covers that she did led me into these hugely different other great things that are now part of the things that I love. So that's one reason I like her. There's so many connections.
I'm still trying to keep up with Cloudburst. Can't do it. Oh my god.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
Cloudburst is John Hendricks singing scat.
Oh
my
so
God.
good.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you maybe that's sweet love and then you
You know who does a great cover of Cloudburst are the Pointer Sisters.
Really?
Yeah.
Their first album. It's really good.
Yeah, they did.
All right.
And Barry Manilow.
Oh, good old Barry always shows up once in a while.
Who Barry covered Joni's River, so there you go. We come full circle.
Good old Barry shows up once in a while. All right. Well, we've had a robust discussion about Court and Spark. As per usual, we had to end the discussion with everyone ranking the album on a scale of 1 to 10. All right. Mark's coming right in with the 10. Sue, 10. Oh, 10. 10. All right, 10. 10.
Whatever.
And you know I don't do this all the time.
Yes, For the Roses, what, 9 point something?
Yeah, 9.37543.
I talked him into saying 10.
No.
Do we get Reuben and Alicia's ratings? 10? Okay. No peer pressure.
Well, it's kind of hard. I mean, I think it's like an A-. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not thrilled with the last 2 or 3 songs. Well, Twisted, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the first 7 songs take so much that those 3 in the middle there, I'm kind of breathing. Or I need a palate cleanser, or whatever you want to call it. But this is really it's hard. I can't say 10, but at the same point in time, I'm like, it's a good record.
You can say
really,
10.
really good record.
You can say less than 10. It's
Say
okay.
whatever you
You
want.
can.
You know, it's
You
Say what you want.
this 1 to 10 thing.
It's just for fun.
It was Village Voices album of the year in 74.
All right. Well, I'm going to pause it, but let's chat for just a couple seconds after I pause it. To all my subscribers, thank you so much. To all my Joni Mitchell friends, this is such a pleasure. I always get cry a couple times, get to hear some good music, have lots of laughs, and we'll be back next month to talk about. I set aside a whole month for Miles of Isles. Are we really going to do that?
I thought we were doing those at the end. Are we doing them chronologically?
Well, we'll talk about it after we pause. We'll be back next month with something.